Welcome to Heroes Have Wings, the podcast that gives a voice to the unsung heroes of Army aviation. I'm your host, Jason Santiago. For the Army aviators, crew chiefs, and flight medics who put it all on the line in the heat of battle, this is their opportunity to share untold stories of courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable will. From their beginnings to the battlefield, you hear about their hardships, the moments of doubt, and how they overcame impossible odds to save lives. These warriors didn't just fight for survival, they put others above themselves, embodying the true spirit of heroism and selfless service. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Heroes Have Wings. Today's guest, Sean Jones, is the definition of resilience, a jack of all trades who walked the path of grit, loyalty, and service. Growing up in Zion, Illinois, Sean took on high school football, Navy JROTC, and the grind of working from an early age. In 2006, he answered the call, becoming an Army crew chief, deploying twice to Afghanistan, pushing through the fire, and earning the Sikorsky Rescue and Maintenance Awards along the way. But beyond the battlefield, Sean's missions continues. A husband of 25 years, a father, and a fierce advocate for veterans, he's proving that resilience is not just about pushing forward. It's about knowing when to reach out. Whether it's leading with loyalty, training in firearms, or unwinding by a bonfire with a cigar, Sean embodies strength, honesty, and brotherhood. This is a conversation you do not want to miss. Sean Jones, welcome to Heroes Have Wings.
Thanks, brother.
How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing good.
Man, it's great to see you.
It's good to see you too, brother.
Shit, how long has it been since we've seen each other?
I mean, your retirement.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
And I've been retired for about 10 years now.
I know, man. I know.
Time flies, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching you on Facebook and keeping up with you. I keep up with all you guys under the radar. So, life's treating you good?
It's treating me as best as it can be, man.
Yeah.
Best it can be.
I remember, you remember what you used to tell me every time when I used to ask you that?
What's that?
You used to give me the Dave Ramsey line. I'd be like, hey, Sean, hey, Specialty Jones, how you doing today? Better than I deserve. You remember that?
Yeah. Still better than I deserve.
Yeah. All right, so, hey, let's get started. As you know, we're going to start with quick hits, all right?
Okay.
Two things, you pick one.
Okay.
One of them I already know the answer because what you drinking on, right?
Okay.
All right, so coffee, energy drinks.
Energy drinks.
City life or country living?
Country living.
Summer heat, winter cold?
A little bit of both.
Okay. Movies or books?
Movies.
Dog person or cat person?
I'm a dog person all the way.
Okay. I haven't met too many cat people.
Yeah.
Nothing against cats, but, you know, a lot of people I meet, they love dogs. Beach vacation, mountain retreat?
Mountain retreat.
Wake up early, stay up late?
Stay up late.
Nice, me too. Action movies or comedies?
Action.
Camping or road trip?
More like camping.
Really?
Yeah.
I hate to camp, man.
You know, what we used to do in the Army, you know, you'd think you'd hate camping, but, you know, when you can control everything, it's even better.
I tell everybody, if I go camping, I'm going to have to go glamping. Is that what they call it?
That's what my wife says. She said, so we're going to have to get an RV, you know, and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I could catch my ass out in the cold, man. Yeah. Cold and wet. The Army got me scarred for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Texting or calling?
Texting.
Texting?
Yeah.
Why do you prefer texting?
Because you don't necessarily have to get the answer right away. You know what I mean? If I need to call somebody, I'm going to call that person right away and say, hey, what's going on? You know, if it's important, you know, texting at least leaves some leeway.
Yeah.
You know, what I used to do, sometimes texting when I was in meetings and whatnot, you know, you couldn't necessarily answer right away. Mm-hmm. So it's better for a text, you know, and sometimes you can discreetly, you know, send a reply.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, I like that too. So let's get started, man.
Okay.
Tell me about you growing up in Zion, Illinois. What that look like?
Okay. So I grew up in Zion. My entire family moved there from my dad's family moved there from Arkansas way back when my dad was a kid. So we scooted around a little bit all the way up till my middle school years, and we finally settled in Zion. Zion's a small town, started about maybe the turn of the century, 1900s.
Yeah.
Christian foundations and whatnot. So it's good. Early on, it was good. Growing up. You know, it's right there on the border of Wisconsin, Illinois. You know, not far from Kenosha, Wisconsin. So it's a good place. I had my mom and dad, my entire life. There were some tumultuous things with my dad. I would say my dad probably provided for us. He was a provider for us. He made sure we had everything we needed, but he wasn't there. And looking back, I understand why.
Yeah.
But because of certain things, we didn't have a great relationship. And more of I did as I was told until I realized that he and I were about the same size.
Yeah.
So. But
before we get to that, were your parents, they were married the entire time?
The entire time I was growing, they got married when I was 3.
3.
So, but they were married up until I was just before I joined the Army.
Really?
So, yeah.
All right, nice. Now, what was your relationship with your mom?
My mom, it was pretty close. I mean, because for the first couple years, it was just me and my mom. My mom and dad. My dad was still in the picture, but my mom and I lived with my grandparents for the first 3 years of my life. So I would say I'd probably leaned on her a lot more than anything growing up.
Yeah. Your grandmother or your mom?
Both.
Both?
Both.
Okay. Now, you having these strong women in your life, how did it help you become the man you are today?
Taught me to be a little bit more caring.
Yeah.
Some people say, have that tender heart, and that'll come up later. But just being able to take care, just kind of sense things, and be a little bit more caring towards anybody.
Yeah.
And that it led into my Army career too. Being that kind of caring person too. So,
How was the relationship between your mom and dad? Was it good?
They were very passionate in some aspects of growing up, but it wasn't a good life to grow up in with those two. It was more of they were always at it with each other, one thing or another, growing up. So it wasn't a healthy marriage, I'd say. So that's one of the reasons why my sister and I are so close now.
Yeah.
Because we ended up protecting each other, trying to for whatever fallout may have happened. So.
Yeah, there's one thing I can agree with you on is that I had my siblings, my growing up, the younger childhood, a little rough around the edges, but I remember always having my brother and sister there. And I tell anybody, especially parents, please make sure your children have siblings. I mean, their life will be different.
Yeah.
You learn so many life lessons, especially if you're the oldest, you're going to learn them fast. I wasn't the oldest. I was the baby.
Yeah.
But I can't even imagine what my life would look like without my brother and sister growing up. So what's your relationship with your sister now?
It's still pretty good. We talk regularly. She lives in Arizona, so she and I, when we get a chance, when she's not dealing with her kids, and we try to talk to each other as best we can. Sometimes it ends up being a couple hours, or to the point where I got to charge my phone.
Yeah.
But we're good. I can lean on her for a lot of things. So.
Okay. So I saw in your intro, Navy JROTC.
Yes, sir. So Zion is not far from Great Lakes, where the Navy boot camp is at.
Okay.
So in our high school, they set up a program probably about a year or two before I did. That's how I met my wife. They set up a Navy Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. So basically, what it is it's a class. It's what it is, a class. It's kind of like ROTC in college. They're teaching you American values, but it's also towards naval history. You know, so you're more like naval battles, things that shaped the country from the early parts of the country on. And it was good. Good class, I always loved it. I mean, I eventually became like what we call an academic commander. So I was one of the top cadets my senior year.
Yep.
But it was a good time. We got to do a lot of things. Like we got to do a mini boot camp week long. Got to go to Camp Atterbury for that with the Army. So it's kind of where I, where I kind of helped develop my love more for the Army.
Yeah.
So.
When did you realize that you wanted to join the Army or the military?
I've always wanted to join the military since I was a kid, man. Since I remember being 4 years old, being at my dad's apartment. One of my uncles came in, and I think he had just got I don't know how what happened with him in the military. He had just gotten out of the military, and he gave me that his PC, the old school woodland camouflage, and I used to rock that thing. It had the little I would say the earmuffs that came down and everything. So I wore that all the time, even to the point where in one of the jobs I worked at, it was a summer job. I wore camouflage, in the summer heat, wearing that woodland camouflage just because it was easier to work in. But I always wanted to join the military.
Nice. Who are the people in your young life who had the most influence on you?
I would say it's a collection of people. Some of my dad's brothers, they stepped in. A lot of my aunts. If you've ever seen any of the Medea movies, that's kind of like my family. That's like a picture of my dad's family right there. My grandparents, they weren't always there because of certain circumstances, but my grandfather always been an upstanding man. He never went a day without work.
Yeah.
My grandmother the same way. They basically instilled in my mom and my their hard work ethic. Which they also instilled into me. So
yeah. So you get to high school, you're doing the Navy JROTC.
Mm-hmm. When
did you make that decision? All right, let me go talk to the recruiters and start this process.
So funny thing is, I went through the delayed entry program. This is 1998, December. I remember I hadn't even been 2 weeks away from my 18th birthday. I talked to my dad. We wanted to go talk to the Navy recruiter, and it was Navy at the time. And just because of where Great Lakes is.
Yeah.
And so we walked in there. They got me in there. They talked me into it. They said, hey, you want to do the Navy? I was like, yeah, because I had two instructors in the Navy ROTC that I really looked up to, three. And I'm like, I want to go to the Navy.
Yeah.
That's what's up there in Great Lakes, so you kind of point your way direction that way. So,
hearing your story, especially with the playful banter amongst the Navy and the Army, and you go from the Navy, then you join the Army, and that's pretty interesting. How long were you on the delayed entry program?
So I got in December. I wasn't supposed to leave till September 14th of 99. I didn't end up going to the Navy.
Okay.
Just to let you know, my wife and I got married 3 days before I was supposed to shoot out to boot camp, but I already had it planned out. I was supposed to go to boot camp, do my boot camp at Great Lakes, and then eventually go down to Pensacola for aviation training. And some didn't sit right with me, looking at the contract and it was getting closer. I've always been a big guy as well, but I played football, So even when I wasn't playing, because I didn't play football my last 2 years of high school, even when I wasn't playing football, I was always working out, so I was always in the gym. So they, they were giving me a hard time with the body fat percentage and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's not like I couldn't do the PT test. It was just the body fat percentage. I'm like, all right. And they're giving me, and recruiters being recruiters, they're just like, hey, try this, try that. And some things just didn't sit right with me. So I decided to back out and just go into the workforce at the time. So
how did that look how'd that conversation go, getting a hold of recruiters like, hey, I ain't going?
So I'll be honest. They tried their recruiter tactics, hey, you're in, you're gonna, we're gonna send the MPs after you. They're gonna be knocking on your door if you don't shoot out for boot camp. And I'm like, wait a minute, let me talk to somebody. I know 3 guys that I've dealt with for the last 4 years of high school.
Yeah.
That can tell me a good answer. I had a 30-year retired captain from the Navy, 30-year retired two 30-year retired master chiefs from the Navy. I'm like, let me pick their brains, see what happens.
Yeah.
And they talked to me and they said, did you swear in? And I said, well, yeah, I swore in, back in December. I'm like, no, did you swear in before boot camp? I'm like, no. Well, then you're not obligated to go. You swore in for delayed entry. So I'm like, so when the recruiters coming back, and I said, well, I talked to Captain So-and-so over here, and they want to have a conversation with you because you're dealing with their cadets all the time. And he's like, whoa, no, we can push you out another couple months and this and that and the other. And I said, at this point, the back and forth, I just.
Yeah, you lost trust with them.
Well, because a lot of it too was because my dad, signed the papers, when I was 17.
Yep.
By this point, I'm 18.
Yep.
They're more or less going through him to deal with me. And I'm like, well, if you want me, I'm the one that's got to serve the contract. Why are you going through my dad?
Yeah.
So.
Plus, you're 18 at this point.
Exactly.
So, how pissed off were they when you told them, I'm not joining the Navy?
Oh, they were pissed. They were pissed. It was a chief petty officer who was running that recruit training center, and then the petty officer first class. I guess she was getting ready to come up for chief board, and I think that might have been one of the things that was required for her to do it. Get sailors in, and I just wasn't feeling it. which looking back, I don't regret that decision at all. So
Yeah. I think everything happens for a reason in life, right?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, 100%. So when did you decide that I'm not going to the Navy, Army's my calling?
So I didn't decide the Army was my calling. Well, actually, I wanted to go at 9/11.
Yeah.
But my wife was 8 months pregnant. You know, my son was gonna and it just didn't sit right. Hey, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you're getting ready to give birth to our child.
Yeah.
And so I just at the time I was like, okay, that's probably not in the cards. So 2006, I was working for a company. I got transferred from Chicago out to New Mexico, working for the medical supply company, and they decided to shut that plant down.
Mm-hmm.
And so Albuquerque, New Mexico, their cost of living is so low. You know, when I was looking for jobs, it was like everybody's laughing at me. You know, like, hey, how much do you make? How much do you make at your last job? I was like, making $16 an hour. We start our guys out at $8 an hour. I'm like, I'm gonna have to work 2 full-time jobs in order to make ends meet. You know, and then my wife and I, we were a little rocky at the time, and I made some stupid decisions. You know. Yeah. At 25, you think you're not making. You got a kid and a wife that you're not making these decisions. Well, one thing led to the next, and I knew I needed to get some training, some education, and I still wanted to serve my country. So I walked in the plaza. There's a Navy recruiting station there. Still Navy was on my mind. I walked in there. They said, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be about 6 months before you can leave." And I'm like, "Man, I gotta leave now." So then I walked. There's a theater between the Navy recruiting station and the Army recruiting station. I walked in the Army recruiting station. New Mexico is huge in Air Force, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, Air Force is going to be the way to go because I probably end up coming back here. You know, we keep our place, you know. Yeah. And then, so I walked in the Army recruiting's office and I said, hey, Sergeant Mejia, where's the Air Force office at? And he said, what do you mean where the daggum Air Force office is? Why are you going to come in? He's chewing me out and the other recruiters getting involved. He said, what can the Air Force do that we can't do? At the time, I was like, well, potentially fly. And he's sitting in front of a helicopter poster, and I'm like, yeah, you got me there. Yeah. You know, so when we talked back and forth, he's like, when do you want to go? I'm like, I want to go ASAP, you know. He's like, well, we try to get you in there ASAP. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see what we got. You know, went to MEPS the first time. And I say the first time, I was right there getting ready to choose my job, and it was going to be aircraft hydraulics. You know, which doesn't exist right now. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And as I'm getting ready to choose a job, I get a phone call from Sergeant Mejia. He's like, hey, you know, you got a bench warrant? I said, bench warrant for what? He's like, well, did you do? I'm like, well, yeah, you know, I did have to talk to a deputy, you know, and, you know, we cleared it all up because I was going to go in the Army. I told him, hey, I was in the wrong. And he said, good to go. Well, apparently I was supposed to be at court the day I was at MEPS. Oh. And luckily, you know, he was like able to call the judge because it was like the end of the day. The judge held off. He got me there. Judge looked at me and saw Sergeant Mejia just kind of sitting in the back. There's like nobody else in the courtroom. He goes, so you're trying to make some changes? I said, yes, sir. He's like, well, I'm not going to stand in your way. So just pay the court costs. And, you know, 3 days later, after I did community service because I had to pay, you know, make payments. I didn't have money at the time because of work. 3 days later, calling Sergeant Mejia, hey, man, I'm ready to go. Got me back to the recruiting station. All I had to do is go back and choose a job.
Damn, man. It's crazy. I love hearing these stories because it proves that the Army or the military does give us that way out to give us that chance to improve our life and actually do something meaningful with our life. Yeah. Let's backtrack for a minute. Did the Army recruiters find out about the Navy delayed entry program?
No, I mean, we kind of joked about it, and I said, that's not going to hinder anything, right? And he's like, no, man, he's like, how long ago was that? I'm like, that was 99, man. He's like, this is 2006, man. And he said, if anything, we can get you in. Yeah. So.
All right, cool. Now, with the statement you made, 25, I remember we're the same age, right? I remember back when I was 25. We're not that, it's crazy how we look back. When we're 25, we think we know everything. Yeah. But now that I'm the age I am, which I'm 44, I don't mind saying that, I realized that how immature and not grown that I was.
Exactly.
So you have to go through life and you have to live life. Let's talk about 9/11. What were you doing 9/11?
So 9/11. So 9/11, interestingly enough, is my anniversary, and my wife and I's anniversary. So that was our 2-year anniversary. Right?
Really?
Yeah. So
Wow.
we were living in Albuquerque at the time. We just moved there in June, and I'm driving to work at the warehouse across out town in Albuquerque, and I'm listening to the radio, and the radio station I listen to is it's Tuesday. They play a lot of rock, and normally they do back to back from the bands, and I'm like, what's going on here? They finally chimed in as I'm going. They're like, hey, the first plane had hit. They're trying to figure out what's going on and whatnot. And at the time, we didn't have a whole lot of cell phone technology at the time. So I finally get to work, call my wife, say, hey, you hear what's going on? By then, the second plane had hit, and we were supposed to be loading medical supplies, and all of us are gathered around the radio trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
I think my boss at the time wheeled in a TV so we can see what's going on. We still ended up getting work done that day, but it was just like kind of a very somber day.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm thinking to my wife, what are we bringing our kid into, with this? Like I said, I was fired up. I wanted to, what can I do to help out,
So it did ignite that fire inside you.
Yeah,
like, man, I need to start. I want to join the military and do it ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So you get to MEPS. When you go to basic?
I go to basic July 11th, 2006.
Wow. My day was July 21st.
Oh, yeah?
But 1999. So
Okay.
yeah, it was, a few years separation there. You go to basic. You went to basic Fort Jackson?
Yes, sir.
How was that?
It was great. I wasn't one of those guys that kind of stuck out like a thumb. I mean, the only thing I stuck out was just my run. I couldn't get my run time good, and that's kind of where I got to meet Drill Sergeant Dingus. That's sweet.
Okay.
He was one of my drill sergeants.
Jack was his drill sergeant, just so you guys could correlate those stories. And Jack was episode 10, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So he was there. He wasn't my direct platoon drill sergeant, but he was one of the company drill sergeants, Delta 360th down there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I kind of, that was the only thing I had to work on was get my run. I mean, I was built up a lot of strength. I lost a lot of weight then.
Yeah.
And just became a hard charger.
Nice. What do you think? What do you remember about Jack the most?
I would say that voice
Yeah,
that he can project, man. I mean, he was I think he was a very honorable person, and I knew back then I was willing to do whatever he told me to do.
Yeah.
I mean, not just because it was basic training,
Yeah.
but just in general. Just a lot of those drill sergeants were very knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
They helped us through. If they saw that we were struggling with something, they'd give you a little bit more attention, but it was to help build you up. You know what I mean? Eventually, and I became one of the student leaderships at one point. They kind of saw that I was known as grandpa in basic training because I was older than everybody, being 25. But and that was kind of one of the things that a lot of the drill sergeants looked at me at like, hey, you're older, and I kind of lived that,
Yeah.
I'm older than some of these guys. I need to be.
How did you feel being that much older? And just to put it in comparison, average age in basic, 17, 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You're 25. You show up and you see all these people much younger than you. How did it make you feel?
I mean, I definitely felt a little out of my element. I mean, some of these guys, in some cases, were looking up to me for some things, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know much about the military. I'm just here with you guys.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, I also became more of a little bit of a teacher then too, in helping people with certain things. I learned the value of being a team when I was out working as a civilian before I joined the Army.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that. I brought that with me in the Army, in basic training. Like, hey, we're a team. We got to learn how to. If we're going to succeed, we got to do this as a team.
Yeah. How did your family feel when you told them you were finally joining the Army and leaving?
Well, my wife at the time, because we were kind of separated at the time,
Mm-hmm.
so she thought it was kind of good for me to like, hey, let's go. One, you're going to get a job, you're working, and two, you're going to do something to better yourself.
Yeah.
Because she had some say in what I got to do in the military. So
she wanted you to do the whole aviation route?
She wanted me to do something opposite of what originally when I walked into the recruiter after thinking about it, I'm like, well, after taking my ASVAB and everything, I thought to myself, maybe I want to be a Ranger,
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, no, that's not happening. That's not happening. So
Not realizing that being on a Black Hawk is probably just as intense and dangerous as doing, the
yeah,
whole
she
Ranger
was
thing.
she was more working on, hey, he an aircraft mechanic, hey, he doesn't get to leave the base, and the recruiter's like, yeah, he's not going to leave the base. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah, that's how it starts.
uh-huh.
Then when you're squared away, they're like, "Hey, you want to go fly?" And then
Exactly.
that's how it starts. So your family back home in Zion, how did they feel about you joining the military?
So my mom and dad had already moved out of Zion. My dad lived in Phoenix at the time, and my mom lived in New Mexico, where I lived at.
Okay.
I was living with my mom when I left for boot camp. So my mom was very proud. My dad was kind of like, you don't, I wish you wouldn't have had it chosen that, but I'm still going to support you wherever, at the end of the day.
Did he ever say why he didn't want you to join the military?
He's never been very like he served in, or not served, but he was in boot camp in the 70s. Like he was one of the last to go in before they required you to have GEDs and whatnot. So he left high school in 77 and went to, and he think he did like 9 weeks and had the medical out for one way or another. And I don't think he ever had a good taste in his mouth about joining the military since then.
Yeah.
So
I want to rewind real quickly. The relationship you had with your dad, how did that make you become the father you are today, the husband you are today, and just the man you are today?
So talking with my dad, as I got older, I know there were some things, when you look at a story or look at the truth, it's, when somebody's there, you got so many things going on. There's three sides to the story, right?
Yep.
So I had to take a step back and look. Yes, my dad was very hard on me, really hard on me sometimes. I think he was basically trying to strengthen me a little bit more.
Yeah.
In the end, as we talked, he and I talked about that towards the end. He just wanted me to be better than he was.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you that. Why do you think, and this is a question I ask a lot of my friends, because if you grew up in the 70s and the 80s, we grew up kind of rough. It was just a different time. Why do you think your dad was hard on you?
So his dad wasn't in the picture all the time.
Yeah.
When he was growing up, his dad stayed in Arkansas. They grew up in Zion. My dad would visit during the summers. A lot of it too is alcohol. My grandfather drank a lot.
Mm-hmm.
My father drank a lot, and he didn't. Now he was functional throughout the week, but we came to weekends. He was one of those binge drinkers, And
I could relate to that.
And that's when a lot of stuff came up between he and I. It was more of a. He went from being a different person. And I could see the Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
Like sometimes he'd be nice during the week, but then next thing you know, like, well, what's going on here? He and I did get in some fights.
Yeah.
And I just didn't feel like so. As I was raising a son, I'm like, there's got to be a way to break the cycle. And I took that from my mom, my grandmother mostly, my wife, the loving from both of them, my mother-in-law as well. She's very instrumental. Showed me that they took me in, and I wanted to basically raise my son to be the best person as he can be.
Yeah.
So,
man, I take my hat off you for that, for breaking that generational curse, and me being a dad now, I realize, because I didn't have my father in my life, and now that I'm a father, I realize how important love from a father is.
oh yeah, very important.
Very important, just to truly love your children. Be stern with them.
Yeah.
But also hug them and kiss them. And it's crazy because me and my 5-year-old, we have a ritual. It's down packed. We don't go to bed without hugs and kisses,
Yeah.
And this is important because I'm showing her that even though your daddy is a tough son of a gun, he still loves you.
Oh yeah.
And that's something I'm trying to teach my older children as well. And like I said, anytime I meet men like you that grew up rough and you made that decision to, what, I'm not going to continue these generational habits. I'm going to be a good father. I always tell you guys, great job, man.
Thanks.
Because I get it. So we get to AIT. Where'd you do AIT at?
I did it at Fort Eustis, Virginia.
How was that?
Oh, it was great. Here again comes with the age factor. I remember a drill sergeant walks up to me as he's like inspecting the ranks, and he's asking questions. He says, "Why are you here, Jones?" "To learn how to work on helicopter, drill sergeant." And he looks at me, and I guess when I got to AIT, they had some problems. That there was possibly some drugs involved. We had a lot of they had a huge mass influx of soldiers that were waiting to go to class.
Yeah.
Of course, soldiers getting bored. They're getting into stuff. So he thought he's like, you're CID, aren't you? I'm like, it took like 3 weeks for me to finally prove to him I'm not CID, man. I'm like, I'm here looking to work on the helicopters, man.
CID, I love that. People that don't know, CID is the Criminal Investigation Department.
Yes, sir.
In the Army, they're the ones who, pretty much the investigators. When people aren't doing things right, they're coming to knock on your door.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, how did it feel being the oldest person at AIT?
Oh man, it's still one of those things. Like, man, am I on the right place still? Still trying to figure out what I'm focused, because this is what I want to do. I want to serve my country. I want to learn, and I want to turn this into something. So it was one of those things like, hey, I'm kind of focused. I'm still separated from my wife.
Yeah.
We're still somewhat talking to my son whenever I can, or writing letters to my son whenever I can. But I got to hang out with a lot of younger kids, just living it up as best we can, Here I'm 25 though, not allowed to drink because they don't let us drink in AIT.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I really wish I could go get a beer, just one beer, but
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm thinking here back when I went to basic and AIT, we had that. Man, I had a few guys that were much older or prior service, and
yeah.
we always did lean towards those guys because you're on average six years older than
Mm-hmm.
the average person in there. So you do have more life and people just gravitate to you.
Oh yeah.
And one thing about you, I don't know if you know this, but you do have a very safe presence about you. When I first met you in Fort Campbell, I was like, man, Specialist Jones, there's something about that guy.
Yeah.
Because you're a tall dude, you're a big dude,
Mm-hmm.
and people just feel safe around you.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Yeah, so that's a blessing, man.
Yeah, yeah.
For real, for people to feel naturally safe around you.
I think a lot of it comes from my faith as well. I may not be devoted as I would like to be to my faith, but I think it keeps me cool, calm.
Yeah.
It allows me to not to like talk about breaking that general's curse. Hey, let me focus on what he wants me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that same way in, like you said in AIT, that safe. I got people gravitate when we're going out on the weekends. Hey, Jonesy's got us. Jonesy's going to be looking out because I always had my head on a swivel. Fort Eustis is not far from Hampton Roads, Newport News. And then down the road is Norfolk. Where the Navy. So a lot of those clashes going on.
Yeah.
So you're just like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this stuff. So
You were that friend in the group that, hey, we good. Jones is with us. There's going to be no problems,
yeah,
right?
yeah, pretty much.
Every group has that guy.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, what was your most memorable moment about basic?
So in basic, I would say finishing basic was probably the best. I mean, looking back at everything that we went through, a couple of drill sergeants like, who are you? I'm like, special or PFC Jones. They're like, well, I don't remember. Well, that's because I've been doing everything I needed to do. I blended in, I yes, I was like part of the student leadership or whatever, helping keep corral everything. But, it was, I had a drill sergeant who was Ranger qualified. He he had been in Macedonia, seen a lot of stuff. When he found out what my job was going to be, he's like, yeah, that's you, man. Yeah. That's looking at you at basic training throughout this training cycle. That suits you, man.
Yeah.
So
what was your biggest takeaway from basic?
Just teamwork.
Teamwork.
Yeah, teamwork.
How important is teamwork in life?
It's great. I mean, it's very important. I would say, and just in anything you do, you may not be able to do everything all the time, and that's just not just life, marriage as well,
Yeah.
You're looking at, hey, this person may not be able to hold 100% of the weight, so let's help pick up the slack.
Yep.
What can we do to help pick up that slack? And that's important teamwork and getting to know your team. When you say, hey, that person's struggling here. Yeah. Pull that person aside. Even now I get people pull me aside. Some of my Navy veteran or my military veterans that I talk to, hey, you doing okay? Yeah. What do you mean? Something's a little off. Let's talk. Let's chit chat about something real quick. Yeah. So.
Okay. What was your most memorable moment about AIT?
I would say going through, we'd have combatives Friday. We had this drill sergeant. His name was Drill Sergeant Oliver. And that dude was a mountain of a dude. I mean, he was probably close to 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
His biceps were about as big as my legs. At one point he was riding his motorcycle. I'd see him pick up his motorcycle and just swing it around. I'm like, I'm not messing with that. He used me as a rag doll because I was one of the biggest guys. He's like, I need you.
Yeah.
I need a volunteer. Jones, you're my volunteer. I'm like, oh, man. Just to be used as a rag doll, I'm like, yeah, that's. But, most of it's just enjoying working on a helicopter, like learning the intricacies of working on a helicopter.
What was your biggest takeaway from AIT?
Just more teamwork, camaraderie, man. Just learning that more and more that's more important as you go through.
Yep. You said some camaraderie. I don't think I've ever experienced camaraderie like the Army.
Oh man, no, it's hard. It's hard.
It's hard to replicate.
It's hard. It took a minute after I got out to like find that camaraderie.
I think even now, like I said, I've been out for 10 years. How long you been out?
12 and a half.
12 and a half. Even now, man, I still struggle trying to find that camaraderie.
Oh yeah.
It's just not the same. And I've said in other episodes, I get it. We all get home. We all part ways. We're all living different lives now. But I know every veteran out there is missing that camaraderie somehow. Yeah. Like we are searching for that because it's something we'll never get back. So you leave AIT. Where do you go next?
Well, I go straight to Fort Campbell.
So you spent your whole military career at Fort Campbell as well?
I did. I had the option. They give you your duty assignments in AIT, to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
I actually had it in my hand. In some ways, like, I don't want to go to Fort Campbell. And I'm thinking to myself, my grandparents live near Fort Campbell. At this point, my grandparents moved to Kentucky when I was like 8 or 9. I'd only seen them sparingly here and there. I could be close to my grandparents. That'd be awesome, you know. And so, and also on top of that, it's it's 101st.
It's 101st.
I've already heard a lot of stories about the 101st, from a lot of people, and I think I've already seen Band of Brothers. I'm like, oh, I got to be part of that.
Yeah.
So that was it. I was like, I'll take Fort Campbell.
Yeah. It's I didn't realize until I got to Fort Campbell how rich the tradition was there, and how, man, the legacy those guys have built there. It's crazy, and I'm so honored to be a part of that. And, and it was great. Sure. So how was it leaving AIT? Was your wife with you now, or
no? So they stayed in New Mexico. When I got to Fort Campbell, we knew there was a chance that I was going to deploy here pretty soon. Didn't know exactly until I got to Fort Campbell. So we were also still working. The lines of communication were now open. We were trying to figure out what was going on, best for us and best for our son.
Yeah.
So they stayed in New Mexico for a bit. They came out and visited from time to time. But then, hey, once I got to my unit and I found out I was deploying, hey, you just go ahead and stay there. Come out. If we get this thing figured out and this is where we still want to be together, come out here after my deployment.
Yeah.
So
I was meaning to ask you, are you first generation military?
I wouldn't say I am. I would say like my mom's side's got a lot of my great uncles served in the military. One served as a typist in World War II.
Really?
Towards the end,
Wow.
He was there skiing, as they're going through Germany. A couple of them were reservists, National Guardsmen. My dad's side, my actual uncles, a lot of them served in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
So
you show up to 101st. What was that like?
So I get to reception, and I'm like, what the heck's going on here? I'm there for a week at reception, and then, come time to what unit we're supposed to go to, I don't even know what unit, because 101st Cab is not expecting anybody. And I'm like, I'm here to go. And they're like, hey, we're going to send you to 6th Battalion. Okay. So we go to 6th Battalion, and they're like, okay, we're going to put you in Delta Company. Okay, and at first I was kind of like a little upset because a lot of guys I went to school with in AIT were already going to line units, flight companies, and I'm like, but I worked hard in AIT. I just kept my nose to the grindstone. I did everything, and at the end of the day, I was like, it's not about that. Let's turn this into something else. Let's see what we can go do with this. Going to Delta Company. So I went to Delta Company, and I think everybody was at NJROTC when I first got there. It was like a couple of sergeants.
What year did you get there?
It was 2007 March. It was actually St. Patty's Day.
Really?
March 2007.
Nice.
So yeah.
When did you realize, or what happened for them to make you put you in a flight company?
So when I got there, Charlie Company, the dust off, still had the Alpha models, and I guess they had just fought out an engine. FOD is just foreign object damage. Something flew through the engine. So they decided, hey, we're gonna go. We got to do the engine modifications to these anyways for Afghanistan. So let's go ahead and start.
Mm-hmm.
So that first one that reeled in, I didn't necessarily get my hands on it, but I had the book open, and as the senior specialists are up there working. I was the tool guy. What do you need me to get? What do you need me to get? And so as each one happened, I was like more and more like Harris. I don't know if you remember Sergeant Harris. He was one of those guys. He basically said, hey, Jones, get up here. Let me help me get these engine out. And that's what happened. Harris, Upton, and Hammonds. That they took me. It wasn't like the other privates. That were just kind of like, we'll do something when they tell me no. I wanted to be involved. Yeah. And because of that, they basically picked me up and mentored me a little bit. So.
Mm-hmm. At what point did you realize you were going to the medevac?
So, our section sergeant was getting ready to go to 5th Battalion, and he called up a bunch of names, Harris, Hammonds, Upton. They were going to Alpha Company, and they said, these two are going, and he called my name. Jones is going to Charlie Company. And a lot of the other privates were like, what? We've been here longer than he has. And he had to explain, well, Jones is not only he's worked on the aircraft, he's read the Dash 10 when there's nothing going on. He's wanting to learn something from the aircraft, so he's shown that he wants to be here. And so, next thing you know, I'm over in Charlie Company in say September 2007.
September 2007. This is about 4 months before we deployed.
Yeah.
So you get there. How long did it take you to become RL1?
So we started my progression. And then we had one of our LTs had a suicide.
I remember that.
And so they grounded us for a bit, and then so I think I did like 2 flights here in the United States. One with Mr. Van Meter and another Mr. Fouth, and that was it. And then we packed up our helicopters to get ready to go. Yeah. So I didn't finish progression until we got to combat.
Nice. So when did you get to Afghanistan?
So I got to Afghanistan, I think it was January of 2008. So we got in country. I remember getting to Bagram, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is different,
Yeah, cold.
Oh, it was cold, looking at snow on the ground, like, man, do I really want to be here? Yeah. But I knew there was something that had to be done, so.
Yep. How did you feel about the Army so far?
I enjoyed the Army. It was as an adult, as a now 26-year-old. Yeah, 26-year-old. I'm like looking at what I did before I joined the Army. It's too easy. Yeah. They tell you what to wear, when to be there. What you got to do. I'm like, I could do this.
Yep. Yep. How long did it take you to become RO1 in FMC in Afghanistan?
I think Sergeant Jenkins had me FMC.
That's fully mission capable, by the way.
I think I had like 35 hours I was done. Mm-hmm. So I was ready to go. I think in the middle of that I had already become RL2. And what a funny story. I don't know if you want. So RL2, I got to do test flights. So I was doing with Eric Neerman, right? And so we're flying, and flying. I think we just replaced the rotor blade. We're having to track and balance. Yep. So we keep going out there, and I think it was Miss Alden's was the PI, and we're going out there. I'm like cheesing, I'm like getting to fly by myself. We're flying back, and I keep hearing Mr. Neerman call on the radio, hey, we're not done yet. And I'm like not thinking, right? And so I get off the aircraft, and at the time I become a specialist, and they're like, hey, we need you to help Alpha Company. They need their flares. Their chaff and flares went off because they put me in charge of the pyro. I'm like, okay, yeah, but I'm like, everybody else is standing around. I'm thinking, okay, Roger, Sergeant, I'll go take care of that. Yeah. Walk into the hangar, and as I turn around, I see my buddy Sergeant Silk. He's got a wand in front of him, getting ready to with a pressure washer. I'm like, uh-oh. As I turn, one of my other buddies has a big old bucket of cherry juice, and he throws it at me. He's like, that's your cherry ride. I'm like, this is what I got to do. All right, fine. But once I made RO1, it was on.
Yeah. How busy were you in 2008?
So in Bagram, we did a lot of tail-to-tail missions.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a whole lot of mass casualties or POIs. I mean, we did a lot down on Highway 1, Fob Warrior, and Kabul and all. And most of our tail-to-tails, go to JAF, pick up patients, or go to, I want to say Ghazni or Good to do tail-to-tails with Salerno and Organy.
Yeah.
A lot of our action that we had to do, that was like POIs, were the Tagab Valley right there at the corridor, at the end of the corridor for the maintenance test flight area.
Yeah. And that's only like maybe 0.1 away.
Exactly.
So how are you feeling at that time in combat? And, it's your first deployment, brand new crew chief. How are you feeling?
I'm enjoying my job and also enjoying helping people.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things, first, the biggest thing, my first mission, that was just kind of crazy, and that kind of leads into, me becoming an instructor later on. We're on a training flight, and we're working on this little goat path, doing a practice hoist and whatnot with my medic. And like I said, this is my first duty cycle that I'm on duty, and we're just doing a training mission. And we get a call, hey, dust off 3-2, you need to come in. We got a mass schedule situation to Gob Valley. So bring back your training dummy and pick up a flight dock, and we did that. So we get out there, and I can't remember the name of the fob. It's right there, the entrance to Tagab Valley.
Mm-hmm.
We landed a small base, and I remember hopping out, and it's like we're under goggles, and that's like, whoa, that's when it really hit me. I'm like, wow, I'm in combat. Seeing tracer fire go out, come in, and whatnot. My medic grabs me, what are you doing? Get the litters out and get your weapon. I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of the sheer shock of it, because I thought we were just going to a base,
Yeah.
That's when I really learned to like listen to everything that was going on.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in the talk, just kind of hanging out with the radio guys, watching the feeds of operations going on when I was on duty, because I knew if there's an operation going on, potentially we're going to go out, and have to rescue somebody.
Yep.
And then on top of that too, the biggest thing for me, I had a 5 or 6 year old at the time, so dealing with the kids,
Yeah.
so that really hits you, so
Yep.
I spent a lot of time with a lot of the crew chiefs when we had downtime. Like we'd go to the hospital, and like my wife would send me toys, and we'd play with the kids, and get to know at least, hey, that's what we're here for,
Yeah. How did you decompress in theater?
I think just kind of hanging out with the guys. We went. I don't know if you remember this. We built a cigar shack,
Yeah.
a little cigar bar out of one of the 20-footers.
Yeah.
So that's what we would do. We'd go out there. Sergeant Adams, he was part of the cigar club at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and he would have cigars shipped over to us. We built this little bar. We had like a TV in there with an Xbox, so we'd play video games in there.
What was your most memorable moment about that 2008 deployment?
So my most memorable moment, we got called on it was a Cat Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 24 hours. We had to be, go pick up the patient, and we're going to do a tail-to-tail with Salerno at I want to say it's either Good or Ghazni. Can't remember the two. And we're just kind of, it's like I said, 24 hours respond. It's a dental patient. We got time, so we took our time going out there. I think the PC is going through his A-part progression,
Mm-hmm.
and the SP was sitting in there. I think Mr. Vaughn was and First Sergeant Zeitz, was my medic. So we're flying over this little village just past Kabul, little mountainside, and I'm looking down, and I'm like, hey, I think one of our Humvees is on fire down there. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I think. So, we kind of, let's check it out. Let's scope it out. And I don't remember who the chase crew was. I know because you were in Alpha Company at the time. Yeah, let's take a look at it, see what's going on. So we kind of do a little hover in that, or do a little right there. The chase aircraft goes, because they see smoke up the road a little bit, and they check that out. Looks like a convoy got pinned in, basically, And as we're kind of loitering around, just trying to get, as we're radioing, oh, hey, this is what we got going on. I look out, and I see this guy sitting out there. He steps out of wood line. He's got an RPG on his shoulder. And I'm like, oh, crap, what do we do, And by then, Chase had already flown in, They basically took him out, and they chased his two riflemen off. They didn't get the riflemen, but they got them. And then kind of as we're thinking about it, as we're right there, they're like, hey, dust off. Since you're there, we got patients probably like 2 clicks away at one of the bases because all those guys that made it were trucked over there. So we ended up taking those guys back. And I remember thinking to myself, like, yeah, we're really, this is, I mean, everything's been chill right now, but oh my God, what, you know? So, and as I remember, as we finally went to go get that patient we were originally supposed to go get, they told us to keep away from over there. So you still see what's going on. I remember some of my pilots didn't like using the EDM, so they'd hand it back to me. I'd like watch it as we're looking, you know, seeing what traffic's out there. I remember Kiowas and Apaches and A-10s flying over there, and I remember hearing explosions. I'm like, oh, yep, they found whoever they're looking for. And unfortunately, I think they end up losing. They captured like two of our guys, you know, and then ended up executing them. Unfortunately, But that was big right there.
Yeah, it's crazy how, especially in the medevac, just combat period. There's a lot of downtime.
Yes.
But when the shit hits the fan, it like hits the fan.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's crazy. It's a lot of intense moments in a short amount of time.
Yes, yes.
And you just got to process, keep moving. It's crazy how I tell everyone our training truly works.
Oh yeah.
It'll just snap. You just it's a switch in your brain. You just go straight to fight mode, and it's incredible to watch when you're a part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
What's your biggest takeaway? You're 26, your first combat deployment. You're in Afghanistan. What was your biggest takeaway throughout that entire year?
So I got to learn a lot that deployment. On top of me, like going through progression and when we got in theater, all the crew chiefs in our company decided, hey, you know what, let's go become EMT certified. You know, we had Doc Helvetstein at the time with us. He taught the EMT paramedic class. So guess what? We had to do our ambulance rides. We do them in the back of the helicopter.
Yeah.
So I got to do some hands-on and get to learn a lot that way as well. And I felt this is where I'm meant to be. You know, whereas when I first joined the Army, I was like, I want to be that. I want to be the spear.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not who I am. You know, looking back, that's definitely not who I am. I like to help people. Yeah. You know, and it kind of my wife calls it Superman complex, superhero complex. I do have that from time to time. You know, so.
Yeah, I think that's I've noticed with a lot of aviation people or people just in the military in general, we have this gift of wanting to help and serve others.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. It's just something we do, and we never even. I mean, I ask myself all the time, why do I want to help people all the time?
Yeah.
But you just get used to it and you keep moving. So you get back. When did you get back from Afghanistan?
It was January of 2009.
So you're there a whole year.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. You get back. What happened next?
So we start training a little bit more. We end up going to Colorado for HATS training. I don't think they had developed more mountain warfare training at the time yet. You know, we were still going out there back and forth to train with the crew members and whatnot. Just working on helicopters. You know, I really that entire year. You know, my wife and son finally moved out in May of that year, so we got to hang out. We bought our house. You know, her parents moved out as well.
Yep.
So we all got to get acclimated again with each other. Just kind of like learn how to live with each other. I think my wife just kind of noticed a little bit difference about me, but at the time she said, hey, maybe it's just because we've been apart for so long. Yeah. You know, so. Did
you guys start working on the marriage?
Yes. I think we went on a couple marriage retreats that the chaplains provided.
Nice.
We enjoyed that. I mean, we got to spend a little bit more time together, and I grew up. You know, kind of trial by fire, you know, so to speak.
That's life, though, man.
Yeah.
Like, you got to go through experiences. You got to go through the trial and error. I think so many people try to live life through the internet.
Yeah.
And reading books, and I tell people, you just got to get out there. And you got to learn. Take calculated risk, right?
Yeah.
Don't be crazy about it, but you have to get out there. You got to figure things out on your own sometimes, and that's something I'm learning now with how old's your son?
He's 23.
23, so I got 20, 24, 23, 21. One thing I'm realizing with them is you just have to step back, guide them a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Provide that left. It's like the bumpers on the bowling,
exactly.
The bowling lane, right? Put the bumpers up for your children, but just let them go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They'll hit you up when they need help, or they'll know if you did your job as parents, you'll know that they'll do the right thing.
Yeah. You know, because as a father, you want them to do better than you, right?
Correct.
And that's with my son. I just kept telling him, I want you to do better than me. You know, I don't steer him away from the military. If he wanted to go to the military, I'll support him.
Yep.
But that's not who he is, and that's fine. You know, he got to go to college. He hasn't finished yet, but you know, I was like, hey, you're gonna finish? I don't know. I just want you to be better than me. That's it. So,
you know what I've realized? Our children, like we're the, what's the word I'm looking for? We're the image or the likeness that we're providing our children, right?
yes.
So it's very important that we as fathers, who we are, because our children want to be just like us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing it now with my 5-year-old all over again. I'm like, baby, why do you want to do that? Because you do it, daddy.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
And it reminds me that I have to be very careful
Mm-hmm.
in how I govern myself,
Mm-hmm.
because the man I am is the man she's going to potentially marry
yeah.
later, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important that we just make sure we're continuously working on ourselves, being mindful of decisions we make, and because it's impacting a lot of people. I mean, leaders, people are watching you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right.
And go back to that. You know, my son was signed up for college and whatnot. You know, I'm biracial. You know, my son's also biracial. You know, so when we were talking about college and whatnot, I'm like, son, you can apply for some of these African American scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, that's not the way you raised me, Dad. You didn't raise me to look at color.
Yeah.
And at the moment, I'm like, wow, you know, right? You're right. You know. So that's why he decided to go on his own, and not apply for those scholarships.
Yeah,
I'm like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Yeah, that's very noble of you. I think a lot of people need to raise their children like that.
Yeah.
But it's the world we live in. As long as we're making a change around us,
Mm-hmm.
it can help the world change,
yeah.
right? So it's one person at a time. So 2009, you're just working with your family right now,
Mm-hmm.
building your relationship with your son. When did you realize you guys are going back to Afghanistan?
Oh, we knew it before we got. Well, by the time we got back, we were going back.
Really?
I mean, we like, hey, we're going back to Afghanistan next year. They didn't have a timeline yet, but they knew, you know, hey, probably sometime next year.
How did that make you feel? I remember how that made me feel. How did that make you feel?
I'll be honest. I don't know if I had feelings at the time. It was like, it's a mission.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoyed what I did. You know, I enjoyed flying. You know, that was the biggest part. Like, since I was a kid, I've always wanted to fly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, okay, and, you know, so I'm looking, you know, turning wrenches or flying. What am I doing? And it's like, okay, let's go.
How did you become an FI?
So I didn't become an FI till after that 2010 deployment.
Okay.
Somebody was very instrumental that you know Josh Powell.
Yeah.
So I was getting ready to go home on mid-tour leave. I would say probably end of August, September, and so he decided to do my no notice because he was the battalion SI.
Yep.
And I'm like, here we go. We got it. You know, I hadn't had a no notice before. I'm like, I'm scared, you know, because I had known Josh for a while because him and.
Are you in Afghanistan at this time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And he talks to me and he after the A part, you know, he's like, or no notice. He's asking me questions. He's like, you know a lot more than you think you know. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you didn't even think, you didn't blink when I asked questions. He's like, I think you should be an FI at some point. And I'm like, I don't know that I'm ready for that, you know. But you know, then I'm at home on leave when he unfortunately has the situation that they have, and it hit me more, and I'm like, well, you know, as I thought about it, I'm like, you know, if he believed in me, you know,
Yeah.
at some point when the opportunity comes, let me take it.
Yeah. And that's when you know you have good leadership.
Yeah.
When they can see the potential in their people.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of leader I always wanted to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, have those intimate relationships with your people. Know them well enough that, hey, as a leader, this is the time for you to push them forward.
Yeah.
Make sure that they're progressing. So when did you get to Afghanistan in 2010?
So I got to Afghanistan. It was March of 2010.
2010?
Yeah.
Where did you go?
Ended up going to Kandahar.
Kandahar?
Yeah, and I think it was on the ground enough time to do an LAO, and then I got pushed out to Dwyer.
Dwyer?
Yeah.
Now, how was the kinetic energy out in Dwyer?
So that was around the same time that the Marja operation kicked off with the Marines. So we were very busy.
Yeah.
I mean, right off the bat. I mean, I was out there with my platoon sergeant, staff sergeant, sergeant first class Joe, sorry, Mr. Taylor and Van Meter. I think that was the crew I was with, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
I'm talking to a lot of you guys. They telling me that that 2010 deployment down in Kandahar was tough.
It was. It was.
Did you fly with Sergeant Shields as well?
I flew a couple missions with Sergeant Shields. Not a lot. I think most of the time I flew with Sergeant Shields. After they did the surge in Kandahar itself, and we set up Fob Wilson. I was there with Sergeant Francis, Sergeant Shields, Mr. Guzman, and Miss Brewington.
Okay, nice. You being there 2010. Now, for everybody out there, you have RC East, that's the northern part of Afghanistan. Then you have RC South, that's the southern part. And you have your spots in Afghanistan. You got the Korengal, Pesh River Valley area, very highly kinetic, a lot of enemy presence. And then you got Kandahar, and Kandahar is the equivalent. It's pretty serious down there. So that's where you guys were at.
Yeah, some people might have called it the Wild Wild West at some point.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't there, but just hearing the stories, it was pretty significant. Comparing that 2010 to your 2008, what was the biggest difference?
2008 was gravy.
Yeah.
Looking back, I mean, now I could say that for me because I was based out of Bagram. You know, we were just doing tail to tails. Now the guys that were in J-Bad or Salerno, they saw a lot of the action. We were just picking up their patients.
Yeah.
You know, J-Bad with the Korengal Valley, like I said, Salerno, they got a lot of kinetic activity. Kandahar, you know, going to Dwyer. We had Ramrod. I didn't go to Ramrod, but Fob Wilson. You know, we were busy.
Yeah.
We were busy.
Did you become an FI down in Kandahar?
No, I would say I probably honed my leadership a little bit as far as dealing with newer guys that were coming to us that had somewhat previous experience. Just kind of like, hey, I know you've been a flight company before, but you might want to look out for this. And the assault and VIP is a lot different than medevac.
Yeah. Night and day.
You know, just be on your P's and Q's. You know, we're going to be on the ground a little bit more. I remember going into Dwyer. I mean, one of our first missions, I think our GPS went out or something. We got called out and to help the Marines out. And we thought we were in the area, you know, and we saw these MRAPs just sitting there huddled, you know, in kind of like a caravan, like a, you know, wagon train type formation. Yeah. And I remember us going down to land, and I remember we did this quick roll on landing right past them, and I remember looking out, and this guy comes out and like, what's going on? That wasn't it. Yeah. Luckily, our chase aircraft had the position in their GPS, and we were able to find them there. You know, it was like not far from where we're at, but it was like, okay, this is what it's going to be like, huh? Because we're flying the alpha mods. You know, they're Frankenhawks. You know, these aren't the newest, but you know, they're some of the oldest, but we're doing the best we can with them. You know, trying to keep up with the technology.
You guys didn't have mic models in 10?
No, we did not.
Oh man, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, we didn't get mic models, so you came with us. So
that's pretty significant, man.
Yeah. I didn't get to see them in combat, but I mean, I got to fly with them quite a bit. So
they're a very impressive machine.
Yeah,
very impressive, man. Just the situational awareness it provides you in the cockpit, and just it's a game changer. What was your most memorable moment 2010 deployment?
Oh man, I would say we really came together as a team. I mean, we're a lot of us pretty close. You know, we still talk to each other, and that's the biggest thing right there. You know, Sergeant Francis and I, you know, we used to have our camaraderie back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, going back to the mods where we stayed at, just making fun, just making fun of each other down the hall. And like I said, the camaraderie, that right there was huge. You know,
one of the things I love the most about the Army, son, I'm teaching my 11-year-old son now that you have to have a thick skin, right? Because that's all we did in the Army.
Yeah.
Grown men, we just picked on each other.
Oh yeah.
And it was the way. It's how we relieved our stress. You know, you show up after a stressful day, walk in there, and I'm talking shit to everybody.
Yeah.
And it was never out of a bad place, just nothing but love, because somebody may need that laugh.
Oh yeah,
right. And then
for sure.
And then we're just, I mean, just the story you talked about with your cherry ride, right? I mean, we used to do all kinds of crazy.
I mean, I think one like Christmas was crazy because you know, I wanted to fly. My birthday's the 24th. You know, and because it was always like bad juju to fly to pull missions on your birthday. So
Yeah.
so they took me off the flight schedule for my birthday. But I remember Christmas morning we had like a huge breakfast. You know, in the PC or CP, like first sergeants walking around. Captain Scott at the time was cooking and everything. You know, everybody's throwing down. We had pancakes and you know, it was a good time. You know, and that right there showed the bond that we all had.
Yeah.
You know?
I think we don't have a choice but to build a bond.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things about the Army, and I think our nation, especially now, that's something that they can learn from a lot of combat veterans, is when you're in tough times, the way we came together, it didn't matter. Like, there were so many people I didn't have stuff in common with.
Yeah.
But when I was in Afghanistan or Iraq back in the day, we just found that commonality, put it all to the side, and we're just Americans, man, human beings living, enjoying life, and I miss that as well. I miss that a lot. And it's something that we're missing nowadays. So, but what's your most memorable mission, Afghanistan?
There were a lot. I don't know if I don't remember Dwayne talking about this, but it was me, him, Van Meter, and Sergeant Cho. You know, we you know, out there because the IEDs, you know, planting on the roads, we ended up landing in opium fields, you know, poppy fields and whatnot. So I remember us landing in a poppy field, and then Sergeant Cho you know, he's different from the other medics that I worked with. Other medics, I'm like, what do you need me to help you out with? They tell me. Sergeant Cho's like, just pull security. That's all I want you to do. Don't do anything else. Just pull security. So I hop out, you know, on my side. He's going on the left side. I'm pulling security right there. And I guess they needed help. So as I, you know, the way the poppy fields were, you got these little ruts and whatnot, you know. And so, you know, Mr. Taylor sees me, you know, as I'm outside his window and pulling security. All right, I'm coming around. And he said, yeah, I started running. And he said I just disappeared, you know, just dropped at the nose of the aircraft. And then he said, next thing you know, I just popped up out of nowhere. He's like, he brought that up after the mission. He's like, what the heck was going on there? I'm like, I don't know. I sunk into something and it popped up and just kept going. He's like, yeah, it's like nothing happened. You didn't skip a beat, just popped up, kept going. And I remember just sharing those stories, you know, that, and we had a huge dust storm happen at Dwyer, and it was crazy. So I remember, you know, when it's getting ready to be dusk, you go out and set your goggles up.
Yeah.
You know, and so I go out to the aircraft, and I'm gonna set my goggles up just in case we get called on the missions. And I remember the makeshift tower that the Marines had out there, and I see like this big cloud behind them. I'm like, oh, okay. So I set my goggles up, looking at another area. Look back up, the tower's covered. I'm like, okay, that's not good. So I walk to the tail of the stabilator, you know. I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and shut all the windows and stuff just in case, you know. By the time I get the stabilator, I'm covered. Like, I can't even see. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I can't see like 2 feet in front of me.
Yeah.
So I finally make it back to the CP, and the other crew's out to the other crew that's on duty. They're out to eat. And we're listening to them on the radio because they're trying to find their way back because they had a little, they gave us one of those forerunners or whatever that we use to like go to get shower and come back. Well, I remember Sergeant Costin and Sergeant Connaughton at the time. They like had to take turns walking out in front of the vehicle, like lead the way back, and it took them like 3 hours to get back from Chow, which is like 15 minutes away.
Damn.
So I mean that right there is like, holy crap, we were definitely in some crazy stuff.
Yeah, and if you haven't been in a dust storm, that's some crazy shit, man.
Oh man, the cleanup was even worse, man. I mean, I don't know. Luckily, the Marines, they had their own aviation guys out there, the Cobras and the Super Hueys. So they brought us a big old pressure washer and vacuums because we had to like wash the engines out and, you know, just so it didn't get glassed up from the heat. And it was just nuts. It took us like at least an hour to get mission ready again the next day.
Damn. And those dust storms, I mean, it'll be sunny outside. It'll get pitch black out there.
Yeah.
Dark. Yeah. And it's crazy.
I mean, there was another mission with Van Meter. We had a dust storm hit, and we didn't have the weather, and we had just picked up a patient. And I remember the Navy doc was like, you know, if it was a U.S. soldier, you guys would do whatever you can to get that patient to where he needs to go. And we're like, but the weather, you know. And I remember one of the great things about us is when we're all working together, whether we get ready to go in a hot LZ or we're not, we at least consult each other and make sure everybody's on board with it.
Yeah.
You know? And I know Mr. Van Meter and Dwayne Taylor, you know, talking to the not only our command at Dwyer, but also back at Kandahar. Hey, you know, we don't have the weather to do this, you know. And then they kind of talked to us, and we kind of figured out a way to do it, just flying the river, because notice with the dust that didn't stay around the river. So we ended up flying the river valley to Camp Bastion, I believe it was, where we had to take the patient, to drop the patient off. But it was like, okay, you know, Ms. Vandermeer, are you good with the Jones? Are you 100% good? You know? I mean, just like I said, in any other mission we had, if there was a mission we were going on where there's a tick going on, hey, there's the troops in contact down there, we're going to go? A lot of us wouldn't even hesitate.
Yeah.
There's somebody down there that needs us. Let's go.
That was crazy. I do remember that vividly as a PC. Anytime we did something that was high risk, bad weather, ticks, whatever, I'd always get the approval. I want to make sure everybody was comfortable with it because I'm essentially putting your life on the line.
Yeah.
So, but I've never heard anybody ever say no.
Yeah.
There was times where I decided that we weren't going to do something when we were chased, right? Like I was never going to fly into clouds around mountains.
Yeah.
We're never doing that. So I'd find another way, and I would consult with my lead aircraft. But that was just a professional courtesy. Make sure your crew is okay with the risk that I'm about to put you in, because your life is on the line as well.
Oh yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway from that 2010 deployment?
Resilience. I had I remember one night, one of our medics, you know, he brought his guitar, and we built a little deck off of our little hooch.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd go out there, smoke cigars, and he would play music for us. And I remember it was just him and I. Everybody came in, and he's like, Jonesy, I've seen you go through a lot of tough times, because that year, not only did we lose Josh Powell, we lost my mentor, Brandon Silk, you know. You've gone through that. You've gone through, you know, I really wanted to get promoted. I was really working, and I kept getting told, hey, work on this. You know, I worked on that. I need you to work on that a little bit more, you know. So every time I felt like I was working on something, I wasn't doing enough.
Yeah.
You know, I spent like 3-4 hours in the gym every day, eating right, learning more about the aircraft as much as I could, learning from Sergeant Hugler and some of the other sergeants. But he said, you know, no matter what's been thrown at you this year, you still have a positive vibe about you. You just keep upbeat. You just keep coming at them. You don't let anything stop you.
Yeah.
And so that from there, that's why I just kind of kept that same attitude.
Why do you think you're that way?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's because growing up, just nothing. My dad, even though my dad didn't have a good relationship growing up, my dad never took no for an answer either. You know, he would. Whatever he could do, I mean, that's one. In some cases, that's kind of where I looked at him as a superhero.
Yeah.
Because he could still move mountains. Whatever he could do, you know. I mean, he worked 3 or 4 different jobs just to get us out of the neighborhood we lived in into a nice neighborhood, you know, with a house, you know, that we can grow up in. So I think that's kind of a little bit of that. And my grandfather, my mom's dad, I mean, he'd grow. When I remember him telling me when I was younger, if he had a job and they told him, hey, we're gonna have to cut your schedule by a day next week, by Monday I got another job. I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, because he just couldn't do that. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about Sergeant Silk real quick.
Okay.
Where were you the day when his mishap happened?
So I was actually first up on duty that day, or that night that it happened. I remember waking up that morning, and like there's a lot of commotion coming out, you know, and I'm like, where's, you know, I think where we had bunked, normally our PC or we'd have bunks together. I remember my other crew member, I think it was one of the pilots, wasn't in my room. I'm like, what's going on? You know, where's everybody at?
Yeah.
So I go and they're like, hey, yeah, they wouldn't tell us who it was. They said we had an aircraft go down, and I'm like, well, what's going on? You know, they said Charlie 5th Bat, and I'm like, wait a minute, you know. So I'm thinking to myself, well, who's launched on that? And they're like, well, Pedro took it, and I'm like, okay, why didn't we go? You know, and looking back, I'm glad they made the decision that day. I mean, I think Pedro was first up anyways.
Yeah.
But normally, I think they would have sent more to back it up. And I found out later on, one of the reasons is like the familiarity with the mission.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, oh, I kind of appreciate that.
Yeah.
At the time in the moment, I was like, I really wanted to be there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a gut punch because Sergeant Silk was one of my biggest mentors. My first deployment. All the way from when I got to Delta Company, he kind of like, I think he was probably instrumental in me coming to Charlie Company.
Yeah.
And then he just saw something in me. You know, he and I would hang out, just him and Sergeant Adams. You know, at first deployment, we all became pretty close, just goofing off sometimes, and just, you know. And I think I saw him a couple days before that happened. You know, on the tarmac, because I think he was up at TK where he was stationed at. And I remember, you know, saying hi to him, talking to him for a few minutes, and that was the last time I saw him. So.
Yeah. I think one of the things the Army has taught me, man, that life is short and precious.
Yeah.
You have to make sure, this is why I hug and kiss my baby every day, right? You just never know when the last time is the last time.
Oh, yeah.
And you just never want to take that for granted. So I tell everybody, a lot of people, they take life for granted because they don't know how fragile it really is.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? When you grow up in a world like we've grown up and we've seen a large amount of loss and we process, we keep it going, but it always looms in the back. I probably think about it every day.
Yeah.
You know, how precious and how short life really is. Shit, I'm 44 and I still feel like I'm in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't move like that anymore, but I still feel that way, right?
Yeah.
And the memories 20 years ago, 25 years ago, still vivid in my mind. Some things, I don't remember a lot of things, but, you know, the impressionable moments. I think that's one of the biggest things the Army does. We develop a lot of relationships with people, close relationships. And I think we struggle with loss because we're either going to lose friends. We may lose friends in combat. We lose friends because they PCS or get out the Army. And it's just a vicious cycle. When you get back from Afghanistan, what happens next?
So at this point, I'm kind of looking at, well, what's next? You know, by then our companies have changed up a little bit. You know, our company's changed up a little bit as far as leadership goes. Danny Stevenson becomes my platoon sergeant. In the 2010 cycle, you know, he and I were like clockwork. You know, got me. Hey, this is what we're gonna do. You know. Jonesy, you're a senior specialist. You know, I started taking more because we didn't have a whole lot of NCOs as far as maintenance goes. So the senior specialists started really taking over as far as like, hey, this is how we're operating. And that's where we really started getting like the testing. Hey, you're going to run it this week. You know, you're going to run it this week. You know, and it really helped develop us as leaders a little better, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember. Them coming to talk to me, Sergeant Hugler and Sergeant Kirtley at the time. Hey, we want to send you to the SI course. And I'm like, man, I really don't want to go anywhere. No, they're coming up here to us. And I'm like, well, that's cool. And they're like, yeah, it's kind of cool, kind of not, because you're going to be in a vacuum for like a whole month. You know, even though you get to go home and see your family, you're still going to be in a vacuum. You know, I worked on that, and Sergeant Hugler, like I said, Sergeant Hugler, the leadership team was all behind that and everything, so I got to go to the SI course. And I tell you, that is like AIT on, no, not even AIT on steroids. It's like, I mean, you're learning aircraft systems by heart, you know, like, there's no referring to the manual on this. You know, you got to be able to spit this out, and you got to do the role reversal and whatnot. At the same time, we're also bringing in the mic models, you know.
Yep.
So the alpha models are leaving, but you know, and at the time, it's like, Jones, you're going to re-enlist, and I'm like, I really want to re-enlist. I do, but the conversation with my family, you know, my wife, not only my wife, but my in-laws, you know, my wife has epilepsy, so I can't just leave her behind with my son, you know, because that's why her mother's there, is to help us out, you know. So it's not just taking an impact on the three of us; it's also taking an impact on five of us, you know, while I'm gone. So I have to think about that, and, you know, at the same time, you know, I got, you know, so I didn't make the decision until probably after the new year, you know, after getting pulled apart in several different directions, what I was going to do. So I did go to the SI course, you know, became an FI-SI.
What's a FI-SI?
So flight instructor, standardization instructor. Basically, that they do is they're training the non-rated crew members in the back. You know, I'm training up crew chiefs, training up medics for the air crew portion of it, not necessarily the medic portion, or the medic portion. So I'm basically teaching the airspace surveillance, how to troubleshoot stuff in flight. You know, basically helping the pilots do what we got to do.
Yeah.
For missions. So like I said, do a month-long course of that, learning how to do PowerPoint more, being able to talk to people more, like just get up and give like speeches, on stuff, and then also same time get in the back of the helicopter and let's go, learning from these instructors who are playing like they're brand new instructor or brand new people or playing like they're the high-ranking NCO. Like, how do you, as a specialist who is now taking a job that's an E5, E6 role, you're going to run into times where you're going to have to fly with somebody that's higher ranking than you. How do you deal with that?
Yep.
So they put me through the paces on that. And I tell you what, that was probably, there's nothing as far as school-wise goes that's worse than that. So when I went to college, I was like, I kept thinking to myself, it's not like the SI course. Not like the SI course. We can do this.
Yeah.
So
man, that says a lot about you that as a specialist, you're becoming an FI, SI. That's pretty impressive. What was your challenges with becoming an NCO?
So my biggest thing is I could do PT. I was always good at doing PT. It was always body fat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm always going to be a big guy. I mean, I even now, I mean, I know I need to work on it more. I'm getting back into that. But just body fat percentage. I was, the first time it was like, hey, I just need you 2% below body fat max. Get there. I need you a little bit more.
Yeah.
We need to be more comfortable. If I go see the sergeant major, how the sergeant major going to, when they do the weight and tape, how is sergeant major going to, because sometimes depending on who it is, the tape's a little heavier than others, and so they wanted to make sure, so it's like, okay, so it was kind of a grind. It's kind of like one of those, why am I even trying sometimes, as I'm watching some of my peers, get promoted, and I'm like, well, I bust my butt every day, do the job. I come do PT when I can. Even when I became an FI, I was doing PT on my own because that's one of those positions you have to do it because you can't necessarily be at PT with the rest of the company.
Yeah, due to the flight schedule.
Yeah, so that was my biggest downfall.
When you got back from Afghanistan 2010, how are you feeling then?
I could feel a little bit off. Just standing in Walmart, just kind of like, watching people in general, thinking to myself, man, these people don't know. We got something going on a world away.
Yeah.
And everybody's just living their life, I was a little bit more heightened as far as my situational awareness goes everywhere I went. Even now, I mean, not as bad now, but even we go to a restaurant, I'm looking at the exits, because there were a couple times where I thought, I lost out on my medic, and I'm like, okay, what's going on, and that because that's my one job on the ground.
Yeah.
Where's my medic?
Where's your medic at? Yeah.
And so, just kind of making sure everybody's safe. We go into, my wife and I and son go into a place. It's like, okay, well, where are the exits at? This is where we're gonna sit. I'm gonna have my back against the wall. Still like that now. My wife's a little bit more understanding. I know my wife did say, she at the point we had already gotten to know each other better. She's like, I miss your smile. That was one of the things she loved about me.
Yeah.
Your smile. Where's your smile? And at the time, I was kind of like, what are you talking about? I'm smiling. She's not like you used to. And I remember thinking to myself that there's not a whole lot to smile about, I mean, I just went through this deployment. I lost two good NCOs that I was with, and of course at this time, Charlie Company 542nd Med, coming from Korea, a lot of those people had been in the same unit forever.
Yeah.
So I'm losing a lot of those friends because some of them are either getting out or going to other units because they're like, we've been with the same unit for like 10 years.
Yeah.
We got to go do something else. So it's like, okay, well, now I'm kind of in limbo. I'm lost.
Yeah.
Not just coming back and like readjusting to life here and everything I'm processing from the last year, because I didn't necessarily process it every day, but sometimes you get that quiet moment, you start thinking about it, you're like, oh man,
Yep.
So that's what I'm trying to, like, at the same time, process what's going on, process all these guys are leaving, what's my next steps, because I'm getting ready to come up on this is 2011, right? So I don't get out till 2012, so I've got a whole year to process what's going on next, what do I do? What schools do I do? What do I stay with Charlie Company if I re-enlist? I mean, what's going on? So
yeah, I think that's one thing a lot of people don't understand from a perspective of a combat veteran. When you're in the type of combat arms job where you're out in the thick of shit and you're doing stuff and you're seeing the things that people see and just war, not just going to a fob and hanging out, but
Yeah.
actually being in the thick of things. I think it's not that you lose a sense of yourself, but something inside of you is infected forever,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I continuously talk about it. It's a lifelong journey to continue to try to, just not recover, but build off of that, making sure you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, when you get back to the States, and this happens overnight nowadays, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take a plane ride, 24 hours, you're back in the States. When you get here and you see everybody just living their life like a normal life,
Yeah.
not realizing like, yo, there's really Americans over there. Like, we're doing this shit because, we want to do it. We volunteered for the Army.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want people to, sit around and like feel sorry for us, none of that mess.
Not.
But it's just crazy how when you get back, people are very disconnected
Mm-hmm.
and they just have this illusion like nothing's going on in the world. And
it's like the 24-hour news cycle. It's like, it moves so fast that, what's the next thing?
correct.
You go back to what was going on too. And I remember I went in to see Doc Chapman for something. And, they started doing those questionnaires,
Yeah.
And I remember him pulling me, he took care of what I needed to get taken care of. He's like, I need to talk to you now. And I'm like, what? Your questionnaire is a little off. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about, sir. And he's like, well, I think we should probably set you up with a mental health, behavioral health, to talk. And I'm like, so what is, he's like, sir, can we do this later? No, you're going to do this because you're not going to be able to fly until you get this taken care of.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, fine, And I ended up getting grounded for like 2 months doing, just to kind of reassess myself. And so in some cases, they give you the option talking to a civilian or a military, and I chose to talk to the military. And of course, this is where we kind of judge people too. So it was an LT I ended up talking to, and I'm sitting in the office, I'm looking at him, I'm like, you don't have a combat patch.
Yeah.
So how do you know what I've gone through that we're talking about? And like I said, it's kind of judgmental on my part, but at the same time, it's like, well, how can you relate to somebody like that, that's done that? Even going into my VA appointment when I was getting out, we didn't talk about my military, how the military affected me and why I'm there. We're talking about me growing up.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure the way I was raised probably had some factor in who I am or how my mental health is affected. But what about the last 6 years and 2 deployments that I just did?
Yeah.
So, that was.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And it's something that we as combat veterans, we have to be careful with as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there is a difference. Being a combat veteran is a very noble thing.
Yeah.
And it's just that we've been there, we've done it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to hold it against nobody that hasn't been.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, it's that's.
Some of my best friends have served in the military, never deployed,
And I was talking about it with Penaloza, with Penny. It's sometimes your number's just called, man.
Yeah.
That's how it is in the Army. Your number's just called. You just be ready when it's called.
Yeah.
What was that decision like, making that you weren't going to stay in the Army?
Like I said, it was tough. Like I said, I was getting pulled in 5 different directions. I think right up until my terminal leave, I was still pulling missions, just training missions. I went to Colorado with you guys. I'm getting out in July. My ETS date's July 10th, and that's when you guys are deploying. So
I will be honest. It was like, Specialist Jones, you were everywhere with me.
Yeah.
Like, we were flying a lot in Colorado. You were everywhere. Then one day you were gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell happened to Jones, man? They're like, he got out. I'm like, what? I had no idea that you were getting out.
I kept it close to my vest because I was, especially when it came down to, like, I had to do my 6 month with ACAP at the time, Army Combat. I can't remember what the AP stands for, but it's basically helped transition out of the military, finding jobs and whatnot. And that was like 6 months out. I had to do this. So I had to take time off for that. Then I was trying to go get my ANP, and I was very unsuccessful at that. So that was another week that I missed. And then it was like, Sergeant Stevenson said, "Hey, we don't have an FI to go with us to Colorado. Would you go?" I'm like, "Well, I'd be happy to."
Yeah.
Because I was hoping to do the same thing I was doing in civilian, So I was trying to build my hours.
Yep.
And also at the same time, I enjoyed what I did. That was why I was there.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved the crews that I was with, talking to the guys. A lot of you guys flew on my FI rides, and like helping me out as I'm working on this stuff. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like I'm Mr. King, John King.
Yep.
Jonesy, aren't you supposed to? Yes, you're right, sir. Gotcha. But we were helping each other out where we could. And it was one of those. I have my family at home, but I have my family's getting ready to deploy.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm letting my family's get ready to deploy down.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to make that decision, and I tell people a lot that I've been married to my wife first. The Army was my mistress.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I got, and I'm like, but I really love the Army.
Yeah.
I'd still be in there today if I could, but at the same time, I love my wife and my son.
Yeah.
My son was 10 years old at the time. I'm starting to see things of him acting out while I was deployed. I think he came home from mid-tour. One of our TVs were shattered. He threw his Wii remote in the TV.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's odd. He knows where the strap for the Wii. Starting to see carvings we had these wood panel walls in our kitchen.
Yep.
Why is Tyler's name carved in the wall? And I'm like, he's getting to be that. That's what it came down to. He's getting to be that age where he needs his father here. Yes, he's got his grandfather here, but he needs his father.
Yeah, it's different.
So
Definitely different. So you and your wife, you made a decision with you and your wife and
mother-in-law and father-in-law, yeah.
Okay. I commend you, man. Just like I told Penny, it is hard to leave the Army, something that we love, and do what's right for our family sometimes. It's hard to make that decision. So never second guess it, man. It's a decision that you made. You got to do what's best for you and your family, right?
Yeah.
And even with me, when I decided that it was time for me, well, the Army helped me decide as well.
Yeah.
But I tell everybody, we're all leaving the Army.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's leaving the Army. Either on your own terms or the Army terms, we're all leaving. And it's something we all have to get prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
And with me, I wasn't even prepared for it, even when I thought I was.
Yeah.
But it was tough for me. All right, Sean, so you had that conversation with your family, your in-laws. You guys made that decision. It's time to part ways.
Mm-hmm.
How did that feel?
It's still tough. I mean, it's still, like I said, I had a hard time letting go. Like I said, I was flying all the way up to the end. I remember First Sergeant Bailey at the time. He was our new first sergeant. I walked in and he's like, I'm in the FISI office, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Records, First Sergeant." He's like, "When do you ET? When's your terminal date?" I'm like, "In 2 days."
Yeah.
You need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And I remember Matt Middleton too. He was still there, and he was in the other office. He's like, you need to be done, dude. You need to take care of yourself.
Yep.
If you're getting out, that's what you need to do. And I was still dedicated to the Army all the way to the end. Still, if they called me back up, whatever I got to do, I'd probably still do it. It was just like I said, family first.
So what happened after the Army?
So I go on terminal leave, going through the ACAP process, walking in the building. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do,
Yeah.
Because I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to continue doing what I was doing, but being I only had 1,000 flight hours, and I was still a specialist. The companies that were out there looking for FISIs to do it in a civilian role, looking for staff sergeants and high hour guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't realize that when I set that goal out, So yes, I enjoyed flying, but at the same time, I could have been focusing on something else.
Yeah.
So I'm like applying everything I can, like going to the ACAP building. I remember, like, I had to clear the ACAP building, and this guy standing there, he's like, "Hey, you looking for a job?" And I'm like, yeah, what is it? And he's like, "It's in the warehouse." And I'm like, "That's what I did before I joined the Army." And I'm not knocking working in the warehouse. I mean, I just gone through like so much training.
Yeah.
What can I use this for? How do I go back in the warehouse and work in the warehouse?
Yep.
And I took the chance, and I said, you know what? I still got to provide for my family, man. I can't like just not sit around and do anything. So I applied, and I remember I was going to my VA medical in Murfreesboro, I think it was, to get my last like actual physical done for the VA. And I get a phone call on route, and it's this guy, one of my best friends now, mentor and best friend now, Elam Matheny. Hey, you want to come in for an interview? I'm like, yeah, but I'm actually on my way out for final medical, and for the VA. And luckily, he's a veteran too.
Yep.
So he understood. He's like, well, yeah, no problem. Just give me a call when you're done, and I'll be here. Interview. I interviewed for the job, got the job as a warehouse associate. It's not what I wanted to get paid, because they tell you when you're going through the ACAP process, this is what you're supposed to be making per your rank.
Yeah.
To continue to live the way you're supposed to live. I mean, it was like $13.50 an hour.
Yeah.
And they told me $18 an hour. I'm like, oh crap. I mean, I'm not going to be able to do this. But I mean, luckily we drove through. I mean, I took that chance, because 6 months they were giving me a $2 raise, and then at a year they were giving me another $2 raise. So once I hit that year, I'd be able to sustain that. And it worked like clockwork. I got to grow in that company,
Yeah.
Like I said, my that manager was my mentor. He advises me on a lot of things today. I became his warehouse lead within 2 years. Started going to college.
Nice.
Decided I went back to get my bachelor's in business. That's not what I intended to do when I went to college.
Yep.
But I had to look at it from another aspect. Hey, this is going to help me in my career here.
Yeah.
If I want to grow here. I think eventually became a warehouse manager or warehouse supervisor, and I ran their fleet for 7 years as a fleet maintenance supervisor.
Yeah.
So I had mechanics that luckily another manager in the company decided to take a chance on me. He said, I know you haven't worked on trucks, but you've got maintenance experience and you got leadership experience.
Yep.
So I want you to get in there, and I did it for 7 years. I was blessed to be able to work. I think I worked all in all for that company 12 years.
Nice.
So I was very blessed with a lot and it was veteran heavy. I got to help out a lot with the veteran programs. Like every year, the company did a lot of good things for Veterans Day. And we had like 200 employees, and out of the 200 employees, we had 35 veterans alone. So I got to go out and shop for the veterans and get them nice gifts and whatnot. I mean, the company really takes care of the people. So shout out to Martin Brower, Dixon, for that. Then we decided to part ways. So
Yep. So 2 questions. First one, what advice would you give to a young soldier that's getting out right now that thought he had the qualifications like you thought, right?
Yeah.
To get out of the Army and continue the job that he's doing in the Army? What advice would you give him so he knows to at least look everywhere so he doesn't set himself up?
So I would say make sure you're looking at all your qualifications. Don't let, that's probably one of the few times I let no get in my way. I was going to get my A&P certification, airframe power plant certification. I did great on the general and the airframe, testing, and it came to the power plant. I failed 2 questions. Well,
Damn.
I should have gone back. Should have actually done my actual practical for the general airframe.
Yeah.
And then going back to get power plant later on, I'd still have my A&P.
Yep.
Now it's been so long that I don't even know that I can remember everything about that.
Yeah.
So make sure you do your homework on what you're doing when you're getting out. That's something that if that's something you truly want to do when you get out, then do your homework.
Yep.
Wear it out. Find somebody that got out like before you, if they're doing the same job, or talk, go to the VFW. There might be somebody there that's sitting around that's done that.
Yeah.
The VFW is a good source to help you out with some things. I was a VFW member for a year. They got a lot of good qualities there.
Yeah. That's some good advice, man. You working at the warehouse, what skills did you learn in the Army that you used while you were working at the warehouse?
I don't know, because as a veteran getting out of the Army, we have a way of talking as veterans in the military. So I was kind of a little worried that I was going to get hemmed up by HR for some things I was going to say. And then I remember talking to my manager, and I'm like, okay. And talking to one of the supervisors who's also a veteran. He'd served in Gulf War. And I'm like, okay. And then I remember talking to some of the guys that I worked with on the floor. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get along great here. You know? Because it didn't have to, I thought I'd have to censor myself completely.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say one of the things is just you think about it, sometimes you talk about those times where you're not doing anything, in the Army, you're not pulling missions or whatnot, you're still doing something.
Yeah.
Whether,
That is so true.
I mean, whether you're out there sweeping the sand in the desert or mopping the rainwater, or that. I mean, it's funny, but that's so I just looked at it like, okay, you know what, this company. They deal with they deal with food, it's just burgers and fries. So I'm looking at it from the same point, like I got to provide for my family still. So whatever I got to do, let's do this till I find the next thing, or till I move up.
Yeah.
I remember one of the leads that trained me. He asked me where I was gonna be, where I thought I'd see myself in the next year or two. I'm like, I'm gonna be in your spot. At this point, they didn't have. He said, man, this entire team of leads we've had, 6 leads, none of us have gone. We're not going anywhere. We've been here for a couple years now.
Yeah.
And then when my almost 2-year mark hit, and I'm like, there's a spot opened up for me. I'm like, okay. And then I remember my manager, I remember asking me when I first sat in the interview, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I see myself sitting in a spot like your spot. So I was sitting in an office running my own department, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I always had that drive, to keep me going.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to. What's the next mission, so to speak? When I got out of the Army, I was like, what's the next mission? Next mission is, okay, make sure my family's taken care of, and then sooner or later go to college.
Yeah.
So then when I got done with college, it's like, man, what's my next mission now?
You finished college?
I did.
Nice.
3 years. I went to Strayer University. One of the proudest of things ever. So I was going to college. I started 2015. So in 2016, my dad passed. I just got promoted. I was getting promoted to supervisor, warehouse supervisor at the same time. And I'm like, okay, that took me down a little bit, and the resilience kicked back in after I failed a couple classes. I had to retake those classes.
Yep.
And then the next year, my grandmother passed away, and I'm like, oh man, but I got to get this done. So Strayer University is all throughout the country. They got satellites. Well, I made it a point. I'm going to walk that stage.
Yep.
I've worked hard for this degree. I'm going to walk that stage.
And you should.
And so I said to my wife, hey, they're having a graduation in June of 2018 in D.C. And she's like, okay. I said, well, I wanted my grandmother and my father and my grandfather to be there because they're like, by this point, before my dad passed, we had already mended. We're, hey, look, whatever happened in the past is the past. You're still my father. I still respect you. My father finally told me, look, man, I never told you enough, but I was always proud of you, what you did, how you decided to do things on your own. That says a lot about how I raised you.
Let me add to that. That is very commendable. Like, for real, I really want to tell you how important that was for your dad and for you guys to bury that hatch and build that relationship.
Yes,
because
for sure.
It's one thing I stress all the time on this show, especially with dads. It is never too late.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if you're that kid that's mad at your father, forgive him.
Yeah.
Like, truly forgive him. If you don't, you will always have this empty place in your heart. And I say this from a man who never had his dad. I tell everybody, if I had one wish, it'd be to hug my dad.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it wouldn't be all the money in the world, none of that shit. It's just to have my dad and hug him. Because I understand that void in my heart, it will always be missing.
Oh, yeah.
So I do commend you for that, for taking that time, and your dad. I don't think you realize how much you impacted your dad's life when you forgave him and you guys built that relationship. And I'm proud of you for that, man.
Yeah. I mean, I found out he was sick a year before. I flew out there to Arizona to spend a week with him, and we had to have some tough conversations because it was at the point where he was like, if this doesn't happen, he needed a lung transplant. If this doesn't happen, then, this is it.
Yeah.
And it was very tough. One of my uncles who had double lung transplants before was there, helping advise us, and, finally, like, hey, Dad, I know you're sick, and look, whatever happened, you're still my dad. I love you, and even to this day, my aunts on my dad's side still reach out to me. Like, my dad's family lives in Arkansas. I get to go see them every once in a while. And I remember I come around the corner, and my uncle's like, Joseph, that you? And he's like, oh, that your walk, your mannerisms, just like your father,
Your dad, man.
And But I mean, that makes you feel proud, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, now knowing the man he was, you know, I know we've all got our faults, right?
Yep.
We just got to grow through them. You know, something changes us at some point where we find that, and I'm really appreciative that we had that week, you know. And like I said, after that, you know, when I was in the military, he and I would talk for hours on end.
Yeah.
We just never touched the subjects of what, you know, what was like, I guess, putting that wall between us.
Yeah.
So
I think he was waiting, and I'm just speaking on my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being a dad, I think he was waiting for you to tell him it was okay and that you forgave him.
I think so. And my sister played a huge part in that. You know,
Yeah.
she was a daddy's girl. So she loved my dad. And they were always very close. So I think she was very instrumental in opening that doorway for us. So.
And that's good, man. I mean, I'm glad your sister did that for you, bro, and for your dad. That's very important.
And I got to walk the stage. So my dad and my grandmother weren't there. My grandfather, you know, it's a very important part of me. You know, it was my mom's dad, you know, my papaw, so to speak, you know. And so, you know, we decided to take a week vacation to D.C. I said, Papa, I'm coming up to Kentucky to get you. We're going to reroute, go to D.C., you know. And then that's when I found out that he probably had, my grandmother passed a year before, and I found out that he had, he was getting sick, you know, dementia, Alzheimer's, early onset. It took that entire week for me to see that, just being with him. But, you know, there's still moments that he was proud of. You know, we got to go, we toured D.C., you know, we went to the Lincoln Memorial,
that's
you
good
know.
stuff, man.
We went to, we saw we didn't even know it. We parked right by the White House, you know. We just turned around, and I'm asking my son, who'd been there a couple years prior, like, where's the White House at? I don't know. I was so young when we went.
Yeah.
And we were watching all these soccer and softball games going on across the field. And my wife and son are still watching the games. And I turn around, and I'm looking at my wife, hey. She's like, what? So remember why we were asking why the road in front was gated off and there's such huge security presence? She goes, yeah, why? Turn around. That's the White House. Oh, okay. You know, so we got to do that. And then, you know, my grandfather, you know, we all went down to a huge, I mean, you got to think about it. All the students they had, like thousands of students, you know, master's and bachelor's program.
That's a lot of people, man.
And Queen Latifah was like our speaker for that day. And I remember, like, I could see my wife and son and my grandfather up, like, where I was sitting at, you know. And I remember it was such an emotional day, man. I mean, like, just the culmination of everything, hard work, you know, late nights working on papers and driving to Nashville and back and home, you know, for some classes, and just all the hard work, right? And I was mainly doing it to show my son, hey, look, dude, when you start something, finish it.
That's right.
You know, you don't necessarily need a degree to get by in the world, but it helps.
Yeah.
And I just remember my grandfather just like looking at me with like pride. You know, I'm looking back at like when I'm 2 or 3. Like I can remember that far back. Just my grandfather taking my grandmother to the train station so she can go to work, and dropping me off at preschool. You know, hold his hand and everything. And I'm just like so proud. You know, and like, dude, I mean, tears are coming down. It was so emotional for me. You know. But it was great, you know, and to have them there, and then like we got to go, then the culmination of everything, you know. The last day we were there, we went to Arlington, you know, and I'm like, I have to see the tomb, you know. I'm here, you know. It's a huge thing for me, just being part of the military, you know, to see what's here, you know, and it was, so.
I tell everybody, if you haven't been to Arlington Cemetery, make it a point to go. It gives me chills just thinking about it, man. Yeah, that place is, man, that is a humbling place to go. And hopefully when I die, that's where they'll put me. But it's a very honorable thing to go see the Tomb of the Unknown, and just being around all those, a lot of heroes in that cemetery, man. We're talking about some big time heroes, so pretty legit. I also want to tell you, good job walking across that stage.
Thanks.
Very, very symbolic. With me, I got my MBA, Tennessee State University here in Nashville. Shout out to Big Blue. And I walked across the stage because I knew how important that is for my children to see that. I think the world needs to see people like us be successful.
Yeah.
Right? show the world that, hey, we do start things.
Mm-hmm.
We don't live up to the stereotypes or whatever people may say. But walking across that bridge is very symbolic, especially when your children can watch it and see it, right?
Yeah.
That's huge because we're setting the foundation for them.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to you to make that happen, to be very intentional with it, strategic, grabbing your grandfather, making these memorable moments
Mm-hmm.
for him, and memorable moments for you and your wife and your son, right?
Yeah.
Walking the stage, and man, that's huge. How important is it for you to build those memories with your family?
It's very important. I mean, even now, my son's 23, works full time. Works for the same company I was working for. Every time a chance to get, hey man, let's go do something. He's a very talented kid. He's in music, art, and whatnot. He got some things I don't even know about. He plays guitar. It's like, wait a minute. He all of a sudden, one of the places I work at right now, they do music on Saturdays. Turns out, hey, they're gonna ask me to play 2 songs for them. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Just the pride to see him up there. That's a memory right there.
Yeah.
Every chance we get, try to make as many memories as we can. Because like you said before, you never know.
Yeah. Man, I'll tell you a quick story. My son calls me up one day. It was a Sunday at like 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, Dad, I want you to go to Top Golf with me, my 24-year-old. I'm like, in the back of my head, I want to say no because it's Sunday, right?
Yeah.
And I'm acting like a lame ass old dude,
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I said, well, son. And then I don't know if it was God or something just hit me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you know what time you want me there? He's like, 9 o'clock. I was like, all right, I'll be there. But it made me realize if my 24-year-old son is calling me to want to spend time with me,
Mm-hmm.
guess what I'm doing?
Can I go spend that time?
I'm going to go spend that time with him because he's busy doing his own life, building his own career, building his own family, all that other stuff. For him to take that time and think about me to want to do something, like I got to make that happen because it's all about the memories, man.
Mm-hmm.
Life is all about the memories. So you wrap it up at the warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
At any time during your transition out the Army and done with the warehouse, are you dealing with any mental health or anything like that?
Here and there, in the moments where I'm just kind of sitting still and not keeping busy, because that's a lot of what I was doing, just keeping myself busy so I didn't think about things.
That's what we all do.
So I would say, I started meeting friends here and there. I met a guy who was one of our fuelers at was it Good or Gosney?
Mm-hmm.
He was one of our fuelers for our Tale of Tales in 2008.
Yep.
He's become one of my best friends now. He does a lot of music, so I got to meet him. He invited me to a group that where we were meeting once a week before COVID, or once a month before COVID, and we're just sitting there chit chatting, just reaching out to each, setting up each other's numbers, because it's that way we can reach out to each other if need be.
Yep.
And that's the problem is, I have this vast network, and sometimes it's like I don't know why it seems easier to go through it alone than it does to reach out to some of those people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm learning more and more to deal with that, reach out to those people. You know what I mean? It's becoming easier.
Yeah.
And then I would say probably around COVID, there's a group called the Drinking Bros. It's by the guys who started the Black Rifle Coffee. They started this group, and then some states have their own chapter. Tennessee has their own chapter. So I became friends with a lot of those guys, meeting up. One of my friends, he used to own a food truck out here in Nashville. So we'd all meet up there, and he's a Marine. So we'd Army-Navy games. We'd do that rivalry, there. And then another group called Irreverent Warriors, which mostly everybody that's part of the Drinking Bros Tennessee group are part of that.
Yeah.
By the way, Drinking Bros, it's the whole point of Drinking Bros is so you don't have to drink alone. And not necessarily drink.
Yep.
We've got a lot of people that are sober in that group.
Yep.
Because we have somebody, so you have somebody to rely on, build that network. And so, but the Irreverent Warriors is for veterans, and so we do hikes. It's like some of the things that we hated doing in the Army, we want to do it, but so the statement that they have is we bring together veterans using humor and camaraderie to help mental health and prevents veteran suicide.
Yeah.
That's the whole goal, is preventing veteran suicide.
Yeah, that's the huge goal.
So you do that, you're reaching out to people. Not doing suicide awareness. We're reaching out to each other. So we do these hikes. We have a hike in Nashville once a year where we're meeting downtown at a certain plot. Yes, we go to a bar or two. You don't have to drink, but we're strapping on the silky shorts, the boots, and our backpack. And we're having a good time. You're sitting there while you're walking at a nice 2-mile-an-hour pace. You're talking to each other. You're building that relationship with them. And then sometimes you go to other cities to do it. Because they're scattered throughout the city. My wife and I are talking about going to Savannah to hopefully do a hike down there in April.
Yeah.
And that's how you start running into people that you met at different hikes, and it becomes part of that culture, and you got more people to lean on.
Yeah. I think that's very important that we lean on each other.
Yeah.
And it's what you said earlier, right? It's hard to relate when they can't relate to our experiences, right?
Yeah.
So we find those people that we can relate to and just find that commonality amongst us. What drives you every day now?
What drives me every day is I still want to look back and my son be proud of me,
Yeah.
my wife to be proud of me, no matter what I do. One of the things, I grew up in the suburbs and now I moved out to the country. I live on 10 acres just of woods, so I can go sit on my back deck and just take in the sounds of nature and whatnot. But that's just one. I just want to be that quiet warrior, I guess, so to speak, at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, something that my family can be proud of.
Yeah.
And hopefully I can make an impact on somebody's life throughout life too. Not just my family's, but somebody else.
How would you like to make that impact on people's lives?
Well, first off, I'm working on several different avenues right now, that I need to still build on. But I like to be able to train people to do things, different outlets to like camping, whatnot, survival, you know what I mean? I know you know a lot more than I do, but just going out there, hey, just being able to take a weekend and reconnect back to nature.
Yeah.
For me, that's what camping is all about. 'Cause I've done some camping trips with some people, and just in a tent, just sitting out there, even getting up in the morning as the sun's rising, sitting outside your tent, drinking a cup of coffee, man.
Yeah.
Just watching that sunrise. Just reconnect.
That's very important. One of the things I do is I love to reconnect with Mother Nature.
Yeah.
This is even if I'm taking a walk during the daytime, getting that vitamin D, but there is a peaceful tranquility about connecting with Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And I say this, I lived in the woods for 2.5 years when I was a SEER instructor, a survival instructor. When you want to talk about just being grounded with the earth, Mother Nature, life being simple, being focused and dial in, it's like you said, just try to get outside and connect, man.
Oh, yeah.
Just sit in that silence. It's very, very impactful. What impact did Irreverent Warrior have on you?
So, 2020 was a very hard time for a lot of people, depression, people just not being able to get out and whatnot. So that first hike, I remember getting out to that hike and I'm like, I don't know anybody out here, I'm struggling mentally, in some aspects. Like, I'm just going through the motions of life at this point, just making sure my family's taken care of, what's next, my wife and I just hit our 20-year anniversary that was the year before that. We took a cruise, we bought our house, our first house together. And so there's some things, like I said, what's the next mission? You think about the next mission, and when when you don't have anything to look forward to, it's kind of like, well, what's next? You're just kind of sitting there in a funk, like I said, keeping my mind busy. Well, Urban Warriors has kind of helped me out because I've been able to make a lot of great friends and brothers and sisters, across the country. Met a lot of great people, in these hikes, just chit-chatting. And even if we don't see each other on a regular basis, we still reach out to each other through Facebook or whatever other media that we use to talk to each other. Hey, how you doing, man? I haven't heard from you in a while.
That's huge. Those check-ins are huge.
Oh, yeah. They're awesome, and even if I've done all but one hike in Tennessee. Tennessee at one point had 5 different hikes in different cities. but even though you were still live in Tennessee, so you're still meeting other people from the other cities, you know, and then you're meeting people from other states, you know, and they're like, hey, why weren't you at the Knoxville hike last year? Well, I don't. Well, I had this going on. You just know that you were missed.
Yeah.
You know, or even at that hike, like, hey, I thought you were going to be here at this hike. You know, I'm like, well, I'm not. I got this going on. So at least still touching base with each other, you know.
Yep.
And then not just at the hikes, but throughout the year, they do things like the Reverend Warriors Nashville. You know, they every once in a while they get together, do karaoke. You know, crazy karaoke with each other, and you know, or they'll go do an event together. You know, Christmas. They did an ugly Christmas sweater thing a couple years ago, which is fun.
Yeah.
You know, and I see that throughout the country that they're doing that. The camaraderie that we were lacking in civilian world, we're getting with each other still.
Yeah.
You know, even though, you know, we still pick on each other because we're different branches, you know, Marines, Army, Navy, Coast Guard. We don't have any Space Force guys in yet, but, you know, we're still picking on each other. But it's that like I said, brother sister type, that family.
I love picking on Navy people.
Oh, I do too.
Man, I go out of my way for that shit.
Oh, when I was working at the company I was working at, we had 3 of our leadership were Army, 1 was Navy. So when we think of Army Navy game, what happened that entire week? We just, he's our HR guy too. It's like, hey Carlos, we got you this week.
And nothing against the Navy. I love all you guys. All right,
yes.
Sailors out there, big shout out. But hey, we're the Army guys here. I love to pick on the Navy. It's good times, man. It really is. Where do you see yourself in about 5 years from now?
In 5 years? So I'm working on a project. I'm hoping to have my own business going, and hopefully it's flourishing by then. You know, I've got some things here and there that I got to find.
Real quick, Sean, I'm going to speak life into you, all right?
Okay.
We don't hope around here. We do.
I got you.
All right, so you have to be very intentional about the things you say.
Okay.
So when you're thinking that way, all right, say, I am going to have a business.
Okay.
Right? I am going to have a business in 5 years. It's going to be thriving, et cetera, et cetera.
I got you.
Speak your future. Speak it into existence, man.
Okay. I'm going to speak it today.
There you go.
I am going to have a flourishing business here in a few years.
There you go.
I am. And it will help a lot of people out.
There you go. So you want to do this business. Let's talk about that for a little bit. What exactly do you want to be doing?
So I'm fine-tuning it a little bit. I'm still gathering, learning, you know, things that as far as I want to teach people survival.
Yeah.
Or not just necessarily survival, going camping.
Mm-hmm.
This is simple stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff that we've gotten away from, which is, like I said, I know you know a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
So
get me excited now.
Yeah. So I've gone out and I've done things, you know, obviously I'm big into firearms. You know, I became an instructor at one point. I got to revive that, you know, looking at other avenues, you know, hey, what, you know, you got to kind of build up your base and then try to work on your niche, I guess, so to speak, you know. So right now, there are a lot of people who want to learn firearms. Not a whole lot of people want to learn the craft of like bushcrafting or, you know, like how do we start a fire out of nothing, or how do I get my own food when I don't have any food? You know, think about it. 2020 people were worried about they don't have any meat at the grocery store. What do I do? I live on 10 acres, man. I got deer. I got raccoons. I grew up, I ate possum and raccoon before. My dad was country. Yeah. So I've eaten that stuff. You know, you got to do what you got to do to survive.
Yeah. And
it's all about resilience, you know? So that's what I want to do, is be able to teach people how to do that. Yeah. You know, and hopefully, you know, I got a couple other veterans I want to work with on this, and not hopefully, but we'll be working with them on this, you know, just the logistics of how everything goes. Yeah. But yeah, I got a couple people that I want to work with on this project, and teaching people. I know one of the veterans is a female veteran. She wants to teach women, you know, self-defense, and you know, we got a lot of women that single out there. You know, how do they protect themselves? Yep. You know, not necessarily just with firearms, but other ways too. You know, I'd like to get, you know, one other thing is I want to get back into martial arts. I was in martial arts as I was getting out of the Army. Yeah. You know, I kind of had to put that on hold for working at Martin Brower, just because of schedule. Yep. So I want to get back into that, you know, get back into my fitness, you know. Yeah. That's another aspect of, you know, you talked about it before, your mental health. You know, what I mean, so that's one thing. You know, we've gone through some things in our lives with trauma, right? How do we keep going? Yeah. You know, that resilience. How do you build up that resilience? Correct. So when things like that happen to your ordinary people that haven't been through what we've been through, I want to be able to relay that to them. Yeah.
And I want to extend my arm and my help out to you.
Okay.
All right. You're sitting next to a man that has owned businesses, survival expert. I have started fires with nothing.
Okay.
These bare hands. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff, and you ever need my help, let me know.
Most definitely.
Like,
I'll be reaching out.
I love to pour into people, man. And even with the fitness stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that's my trademark, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows Jason, fitness. Anything you need help with, I'm sincerely here for you, bro.
Most definitely. Most definitely be reaching out.
What I want to do, and I'm going to challenge you on this, all right? We're going to reconnect in a year or two.
Okay.
And when we reconnect again, I want you to be in a different place in life.
Okay.
Okay? And I'm going to hold you to that because I feel one of the most important things in my life is to make sure that I pour into other men.
Yeah.
Like, we don't get that enough.
No.
All right? We're always told to suck it up, go provide, shut up, don't. That's cool. We're going to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to make sure I check on my brothers in the process, all right? So I really want you to know that I'm here to help you as much as I can.
Oh, for sure, man.
Okay.
I'm gonna wear it out. Trust me, I'm gonna wear it out.
Listen, you're gonna get tired of me before I get tired of you.
Okay.
I guarantee you.
Okay.
If you don't believe me, ask the people around the room. I hold people accountable. I don't play around. Okay? But I mean that from a place of love, though.
Yeah.
All right. I think one thing we are missing in this side of the states, there's really no survival schools around here.
No.
And I know this because I've went to one of the hardest civilian survival schools in the country,
Mm-hmm.
all right, out in Boulder, Colorado. That school damn near broke me,
Yeah.
all right, but I made it through because that's just who I am, very resilient. And I think you have something that we could build off of.
That's
All right.
that's what I'm wanting to do.
So remember this, whatever you want to happen in life is going to happen. That's good or bad, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Just how the bad things happen, you can make the good things happen. It's all about mindset. Every day, I'm in a tough time in life right now, but every day I get up, I keep pushing, because I know 2 reasons why I do it. Okay, I got five kids that are watching me every day.
Mm-hmm.
If I quit, I'm teaching my kids that quitting is okay.
Yeah.
That's not one thing. We don't do that around here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The second thing, which is more like maybe it's just me thinking, I know there's people out there that want me to fail.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that shit gets when I talk about it fuels my fire, like take 100% pure oxygen, blow it on the fire, you get that blue flame,
Yeah.
nice and hot. That shit gets me going every day. So whatever you need, man, I'm here for you. All right.
Definitely.
I genuinely need that.
Definitely.
All right, I'm gonna ask you some questions. All right, I want to see how you respond to those.
All right.
What key lessons or takeaway do you hope listeners will gain from your story today?
Be resilient. Be moldable too. You know, I think at one point I thought, okay, this is all I'm gonna be doing for the rest of my life is working in a warehouse. You know, my dad told me the only way I was going to college is through the military or if I paid for it on my own.
Yep.
You know, I didn't think, you know, I don't regret anything I've decisions I made in life, but I thought at some point I painted myself in a corner, but there's always a way around.
Yeah.
You know, I did go to college. Yes, it was 25 years later, but I went to college, you
Yep.
know, and it's worth it, you know,
Yep.
but also the experience I've gained along the way.
Yeah. What's the biggest regret in life or in the military?
I don't think I regret anything. I think when I was in the Army, I left everything I could on the table,
Yeah.
up to trying to get, you know, what I could to get promoted. I think that's also a key factor in me getting out. It's because I just wasn't making rank the way I thought I would.
Yeah.
As well as the sacrifices my family was making too, as while I'm doing this career. You know, I felt kind of like Peter Pan when I was in the Army,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Yes, we're flying around and everything, but something I wanted to do as a kid. I always loved aircraft. I got to fly on a Black Hawk, you know. I mean, when they told me what job to pick, you know, when I was at MEPS, and I said, we got Blackhawks, Chinooks, or Apaches. I'm like, well, Blackhawks. Well, why that? Because they ain't made a movie about the other two yet.
That's right.
And
they never will,
yeah.
because we set the standard high.
Yes.
What legacy do you want to leave behind for your family and your friends?
Never quit. Be there for each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that's. I mean, one of the greatest things. One of the greatest people to walk the earth. You know, he flat out told everybody to be there for each other. You know, I mean, not that way, but I mean, love one another. You know, love your neighbor. That's all he talked about, love, and that's what I want to be known for.
Yeah.
You know, I might not show it in the same way with every individual person. You know, but you know, like you talk about, I try to show everybody that I love them in some way, shape, or form. I may not like you.
Yeah.
But I love you.
Yep. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That really is okay. What's one thing you would tell your younger self?
Just keep going. Your time will come. Just keep going. Your time will come.
Yeah, it's very important. Keep it going. Keep it going, man. Currently, what are you doing besides?
Right now, I work security at a local bar in Hickman County. Friday, Saturday nights, you know, help the owner with whatever he needs done. Just went out and got my actual Tennessee security license. Dallas Law, I'm working on getting my active shooter training in a couple weeks here. That's also part of my repertoire I'm trying to build, you know. I'm also looking for work.
Yeah.
So
What do you want to do?
I like leading. I've worked in logistics, worked on equipment. I don't necessarily want to keep working on equipment. I can work in a warehouse. You know, I like I said, I like leading and instilling on that next person. Not necessarily. I'm not lording over anybody, but I want to show them stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and grow the next group of leaders.
Yeah.
You know, even if it is in just a logistics part. You know what I mean?
What are some hobbies or passions outside of work?
Man, I'm very big in the firearm space. You know, I mean, I like going to the range. You know, teaching. I've taught my son from a very young age how to fire firearms safely.
Yep.
You know, I do that with my wife right now. She's, you know, people look at me crazy because for our 25th anniversary, I went and bought her a pistol.
Yeah.
They say, "Why you buy your wife a pistol?"
Nah, that's a great gift.
I'm like,
huh?
"That's a great gift." I mean, if I'm not there, guess what? She can defend herself.
Yep.
I like doing that. You know, where I'm at, I'm sitting on 10 acres of woods, you know, got my little house in the middle, got my little shop that I kind of like converted into like our cigar shack in Afghanistan, you know. It's got the map of Fort Campbell in there.
Yeah.
It's got a patch wall. You know, but I got a fire pit outside. You know, I'll go smoke a cigar in the winter in the shop, or I'll sit out by the fire. You know, I'm not a big drinker, but I love whiskey and bourbon. So I'll sit out with a glass of bourbon or whiskey and smoke a cigar, man, and just kind of like enjoy the vibe, you know.
Yeah.
Listen to music or podcasts, you know. My wife will come out there sometimes with me. We'll hang out. Sometimes I'll have a bonfire. I've gotten to know people that are musicians. You know, they come out and they'll bring their acoustic guitars and start playing around the bonfire. We just did that last year.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to do more of that kind of stuff. You know, connect with more people because that's awesome. You know, what's funny is I moved out to middle of nowhere to be secluded, but now I'm attracting more people out to me. You know,
Hell, they want to be out there in that peace and quiet, man.
I mean, that's the thing. You know.
What's your favorite bourbon?
Right now, there was one that I won at like an auction, and it's called I want to say Horseman. I think it's called. It was made by I want to say one of the guys that was the first people in Afghanistan. Horse Soldier. That's what it is. I'm sorry. It's got a gold label on the front of it. You know, embossed with a soldier riding into the mountains on a horse. Man, I won that, and the guy who distills it signed it, you know, and unfortunately I finished it off, so I haven't been able to get more of it yet. But that's one of my favorites.
Hopefully he's listening. He'll send you a bottle.
Oh man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll try anything, man. I've gone, you know, my wife and I, was it 2020? We went down to Huntsville. You know, she's big into chocolate. She loves chocolate.
Yeah.
So we found like a chocolate place down there. We went down there for a weekend. Well, she found a place down there by this guy who was a literal rocket scientist, worked for NASA in some way, shape, or form, was on furlough. He had already done hobby of brewing beer. Now he's trying his hand at whiskey and bourbon. Well, he was out, but he let us try some, you know, what he had. And I was like, well, I'm not going to get any to take home today. And then she found another one, a veteran-owned distillery not far from there. Shout out to Black Patch Distillery. I mean, I haven't been back there in over a year, but the guy who runs it, his dad, the guy who owns it is a veteran. He lost his leg in combat.
Mm-hmm.
His dad is a chemist.
Nice.
His dad really enjoys doing that. He's the master distiller.
Yeah.
So we got down there, and this man is like, you think about Fireball, how nasty Fireball is? No, this man's got a cinnamon whiskey that blow your. It doesn't even leave the aftertaste,
Really.
But he makes his own candy for that cinnamon whiskey.
Nice.
And then he made this apple pie liqueur and all that stuff. So I enjoy sampling. Working at a bar, I do drink beer. But thankfully I'm not like my. Like I said, breaking the cycle. I'm looking at myself. I like the taste of this beer. I'll drink this beer.
Yeah.
I know what my limit is. I cut myself off.
Yeah.
I can take it or leave it. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
But
what's your favorite cigar?
oh man, Arturo Fuente.
Okay.
Man.
I like that Spanish. Man. That was good.
Sorry.
That was
I lived
good.
in New Mexico, man. I got to learn a little bit of. And of course Penny too, but no, I like Nicaraguan cigars, Honduran cigars, we got a cigar shop not far from me in Dixon, Tennessee that I've gone to get some stuff. They got a nice humidor in there, so
nice. Since you're a firearms guy, what you carrying? Normally, regular day.
Right now, a Glock 30.
Okay.
I'm a 45 guy. So it took me a while to get there. I got out of the Army and I didn't have any firearms. It took the Army to put firearms in me, and I grew up around firearms. My dad had firearms.
Yeah.
But I was like, and I got to meet some friends. I was like, hey, this Smith & Wesson's, bought that, and then I'm like, you know what? I like the impact of a 45.
Yeah.
So my first one was a Glock 21,
mm-hmm.
and everybody's like, that's a big gun, but I'm a big guy, And then I was like, I need something compact to carry around on a daily basis. That still has can still hold the same rounds, and I did that Glock 30. It's just, everybody talks about Glock. I didn't like it at first because I was looking at aesthetics. But I'm also looking at what I used to use in the Army, the Beretta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My first handgun was a Glock. So
really?
I think it was a Glock 26. It was a 45 as well, compact 45.
Yeah.
Now I'm rocking the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thing is
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of jealous of my wife. I got her the H&K 9, and I'm like, man, we can probably get another one of those. Yeah. She's like, you know what you paid for that? I'm like, yeah, I know.
I feel you, man. Describe yourself in 3 words. What would they be?
Loyal, honest. I'd have to say loyal, honest, and deliberate.
How important are those 3 things to you?
Loyalty, and that's just been, I think since birth it's been instilled in me, just being loyal to family, loyal to self. And of course it grew in the Army, right?
Yep.
Everywhere I go, every organization I've been part of, I've tried to be as loyal as I can to them.
Yeah.
What can I do to help you guys out? You guys have helped me out with something, in past professions, companies I've worked for, whatnot, they've helped me along the way to shape me in some way, shape, or form, right? So what can I do for them? Even though I'm no longer working for any of those companies, I still speak big about those companies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Honesty, man, there was a time where I wasn't an honest person. And that's where I ended up, how I ended up in the Army, and I think that sense of honesty just, I learned you get along better if you're just outright honest and you own up to things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There have been plenty of times it's like, and I don't know where I learned that as a kid. Just being dishonest. But I'm like, it's a lot easier if you own up to everything and just own it.
Yeah.
You do something wrong, own it.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's far easier to get over that than it is to be deceptive.
Mm-hmm.
Deliberate. Just kind of thinking about making your next moves.
Yeah.
Like step back, be strategic.
Mm-hmm.
You and I are talking about the business and everything. Yes, be strategic in that stuff. I've been strategic in everything up until this point. So why would I stop?
Yep. No, I get that, man. You put here, how would you like to be introduced on the show? You put the jack of all trades, and I even had it on my intro. I want you to elaborate a little bit on that.
Well, we always talked about that as being crew chiefs. We're jack of all trades, master of nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're mechanics on the aircraft. We, especially in medevac, we help out the medics. We're definitely not medics,
Yeah.
you know, but we help out where we can. And then we can fix just about anything, you know. And when I put that down there, I thought about it. So my first deployment, and just a story with Brandon Silk, 2008. You know, we had an LT that took one of our gators. You know, we had all those gators down there because we were so far from the rest of the battalion. He took one of those, I think it was a Mogas gator. It was Mr. Neerman's gator at that. We called it the Pumpmobile. Remember, it had the little glass thing on top of it?
Yeah.
And they took it and they put diesel in there. And they got down the road, man. And next thing they're coming walking back, hey, gator's down the road. Well, why is it down there, sir? It just died. Sputtered and died. Well, they took it to the motor pool. Motor pool's like, we can't do anything about it. They're like, it's got diesel and we can't do anything about it. So we towed it back. One of our days, me and Silk taking apart the engine, pulling the Dremel out, pulling the carbon out of the engine parts and everything, put it back together, had it running good as new.
Yeah.
And of course, the motor pool caught Mr. Neerman riding around with it. They're like, hey, you got to dispatch that vehicle. And they looked at it. They opened up and they're like, your crew chiefs worked on this, didn't they? Why? How do you know? The safety wire. And I'm like, jack of all trades, right? So, I mean, that's us. I've learned to be resilient and be able to do, if I can figure out how to do something, figure it out. In this day and age, it's easy to figure out how to do something with everything on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, man. I tell everybody that. I said, if you want to learn something, go on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You can fix trucks, everything. Right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I used to rely on my father-in-law to help me with my mechanics on my vehicles. Now he's in Arizona. Yeah. So it's like, oh, man, now I got to YouTube this, you know?
Yeah, I get it. You were going to give me a gift earlier. I want you to explain to the audience what it is.
Okay. So I basically took a bunch of my pictures that were taken of me in my combat gear when I was in, and some of it with my beard that I've grown, and put in an AI. Well, AI came out with a bunch of pictures. Some of them are hilarious. You look at it. I'll send those to you later on so you can see some of those. But the one that stood out, and I was like, this is gonna be my brand, and it's me in my kit, basically with fire behind me, because I don't know what was going on that AI picked up on that, but it just seemed to work.
Yeah, I like that.
That's a sticker, and of course I deal with patches a lot, so I've also got a patch.
Oh, I like that. If you're an aviation person, we love patches. Our life is
for sure.
like revolves around patches. We got patches on everything. You can tell by my pins and stuff. So, but this is a great idea, man.
Yeah, I mean that was what I was thinking. I've come across a lot of guys that have kind of been in the firearms industry or sold a lot of just holsters and whatnot. Well, guess what? How do you keep that going? Or even like guys that are trying to get do content online, right?
Yeah.
Well, how do you keep that going? Well, guess what? Start dealing merch.
Yeah.
You know, some people do T-shirts, you know, and that's eventually. I actually have a couple T-shirts my wife and I wear around sometimes.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the quote that's on those T-shirts, but it's talking about walking through fire. But that's one of those things that I thought I was working on, you know, to help grow things.
Yeah.
With stickers, especially if you start handing stickers out, hey, look.
Yep.
I'm like, hey, I don't know that guy. Now in my area. There are people walking with this sticker on their truck, or like in the bar, like, hey, I know that guy. You know, hey, even on hikes, I handed those patches out on hikes.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's you, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah. The company I worked with is Patch Shops that works on it. They do a lot of our stuff for Irreverent Warriors. So.
And remember, as you continue to grow, I love your ideas, by the way. Love this branding because it embodies who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Remember this as you create other business. You are your brand. Okay? Mm-hmm. You are the brand. It took me 6 years to realize that.
Yeah.
6 years. It took me about 3 years. The last 3 years I've been working on that, right?
Yeah.
People want to work with other people, not other companies, right? So when we start getting you launched and we start doing big things, I'm doing it because I want to work with you.
Okay.
Right? I like Sean. I have the relationship with Sean. And from that relationship, now we're building a business relationship together, right?
Okay.
So always remember that you are the brand and just keep building yourself, keep building that brand. Where can we find you? If my buddies, everybody sees this today, right? Where can they find these? Where can I get a hold of you? Where can we find the stuff?
I don't have a lot of those in production right now, but I can get them. You can find me on Sean Jones, SEAN Jones, Facebook, Instagram. Still find me at Sean Jones as well, but it's Mando Dag. I was going through a bit of a branding with TikTok taking off. I was looking at cosplay. You know, I'm big into Star Wars. You know,
So am I.
so somebody pointed out one of the pictures that was taken of me. Hey, you look like a Mandalorian. Well, guess what? You know, that's one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. So, you know, that's why I went through Mando Dag. You know, and I think TikTok is Mando Hawk 64, Mando _ Hawk 64.
Okay.
I try not to post whole lot of views on Facebook. I'm kind of lurking here as of lately on Facebook. I kind of like share pictures that I see that are pretty cool. You might see pictures of my dog. You know, we got a little pug that's become my little buddy.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what you'll see on a lot of that stuff. Either cosplay or what I'm trying to work on with this, or my dog. So.
Okay. Who's your favorite character in Star Wars? This is important now.
Oh man, I like Din Djarin.
Din Djarin.
The new Mandalorian.
Oh.
Boba Fett, you know, the little I mean, growing up, I liked the Jedi, you know, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, you know what? That bounty hunter thing, you know, that's the way to go.
Yeah, I'm a big Jedi guy, man. I love the Jedi.
Oh, yeah. That's my goal. When my wife and I finally get a chance to go down to Disney, I'm going to build myself a lightsaber.
You haven't gone yet?
Not yet.
I went in May.
Yeah?
Yeah, and it was an experience, man.
Really?
Yeah, definitely go.
I mean, I'm like entranced in the lore of it. You know, that's in this day and age, you have to have a place to escape, and sometimes fantasy is the best way to do it.
Yeah, man.
You know, you're looking at Star Wars. That's how I escape.
I agree with you, man. Any lasting words?
Just make sure you stay resilient. Take care of yourself. Like Jason said before, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, but also take care of your responsibilities. Make sure you take care of your mental health.
Yeah.
That's what keeps you going.
What can I do for you?
Man, I think you're doing we're already starting that collaboration right now. Kind of feel like Arnold Schwarzenegger and what's the name of Predator right now when they meet up. You know, talking about Action Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I remember him as his name is Carl something.
Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers. Yeah.
He's Apollo Creed from Rocky.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think everything you've already extended me, and I'm going to take it around, Jason.
All right, I'm going to hold you accountable, man. Like I normally do, I appreciate your time today, man. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot of stuff you can be doing right now, spending this time with a lot of other people. I want to thank you for driving that hour to come meet with me today. Continue to support me. You're always sharing the Heroes Have Wings podcast on Facebook and putting a word out there. So I really thank you for that.
Thank you.
Once again, you need anything from me, lean on the people you have on your side, man.
Yes.
We're all a phone call away, and I'm going to do the same. I mean, hell, I want to come check you out. You know, we come by, shoot some guns, and, hang out. I don't smoke any cigars, but I'll drink a little bit of bourbon with you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, man, I appreciate it, all the good times we had, especially in Colorado.
Oh, yeah, it's great times.
Our last hats rotation before we left to Afghanistan in 2012. I remember you being out there, always working hard, always, leading from the front. And I want you to understand something. Your past is your past. All right? Don't let your past shape your future. We're all one decision away from changing our life every day. You just have to be intentional about it. It's my 4 Ds. I tell everybody, my 4 Ds to elevation. You have to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Once you decide, you have to start developing habits. Once you develop these habits, it creates discipline, and then we don't miss. That's a consistency. Just do those 4 things every single day, and you'll find yourself in a different place in life in a year from now.
Okay.
All right? But I do sincerely love you, man. I appreciate everything. Your friendship when we're out in hats. I remember you always helping me out, and shit, it's these bonds that are worth. This is what life is about.
Oh, yeah.
These friendships that if I need you 10 years later, you'll say yes and won't even talk shit about it. It's like, I got you. And I'm the same way. I'm going to reciprocate that back to you. All right? But like I said, you need anything from me, let me know.
Okay.
All right, you got my number now.
Mm-hmm.
You got my Instagram. I'm an easy person to find.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, you want to come find me, come find me. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
All right, so, but yeah, appreciate you, brother. This is another wonderful episode of Heroes Have Wings. My boy Sean Jones, great job, great character. Hit him up for these patches. Start showing him some support and love. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. I'm your host, Jason Santiago. Thank you for tuning in to Heroes Have Wings, where we honor the extraordinary stories of grit, sacrifice, and resilience. Remember, every hero's journey starts with a single step, so take yours today. If you love this episode, like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep pushing limits, breaking barriers, and living your truth. I'm your host, Jason Santiago, and this is Heroes Have Wings, where legends rise.